All good?
All good.
Good, thank you.
We're good here, sir.
Thank you. And Samantha, you're all set too? Okay. Okay, Jessica, are you with us on the call-in line?
Yes,
Well, good morning.
yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. I'd like to call this regular meeting, Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, to order, and it's 10 a.m. And I wanted to introduce, before our pledge and invocation, I wanted to introduce Tammy and Pastor Joe Tusi, married couple. They run U-Turn for Christ in Payson. Decided to drive all the way down here to offer the prayer, and we really appreciate that. And so then I've also asked Tammy, who will nervously lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you just say, "I pledge," we'll take it from there. So if you would, let's all stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. If you so choose, would you bow your heads with me and pray? Papa, we come before you and we thank you, Lord, and lift up this county supervisors meeting. We ask you to draw them close to you, give them wisdom, and may your ways and your grace be evident today in this meeting. We ask you to lead them in making the right decisions that align with what you would like to accomplish in this county and through your people, Lord. We ask you, Lord, to help us to submit to our leaders that you've placed over us and give us an understanding that ultimately you are in control. May our leaders seek your guidance in all they do. Surround them with godly counsel and with advisors who know you and walk faithfully with you. Lead them according to your perfect will. Let our leaders fulfill their God-given destiny and accomplish their assignments you have given them, both today in this meeting and for the time appointed to them here in Gila County. Gila County, Lord. Amen. I'm still new to the county. I still call it Gila. I apologize.
Thank you. Okay. We have quite a bit today, so we'll just move right on into it. And I need a motion to recess as the Gila County Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Gila County Library Board of Directors.
So moved, Mr. Chair. And I'll second that.
Okay, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Good morning. We have information, discussion, and action to approve the renewal and acceptance of grantee agreement number GRARC 004-24-1209-01-Y2 between the Gila Regional Partnership Council, Arizona Early Childhood Development and Health Board, First Things First, and the Gila County Library District in the amount of $60,000 for fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025. And good morning, Elaine.
Good morning, Chairman Christensen, Supervisor Klein, Supervisor Humphrey. This is our First Things First Parent Education Community-Based Training Grant renewal that began in 2011. This grant fosters and promotes parent training on the importance of helping children to develop pre-reading skills that are necessary for literacy in young children. In addition to the parent training, each child aged birth to 5 who resides in Gila County is eligible to receive a book through the mail. This can provide the child with up to 60 books that are free and age appropriate for their own personal library. This is possible through the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. This grant has a goal of enrolling 1,300 children and distributing 15,600 books in the new fiscal year. We currently have 1,017 enrolled and have distributed approximately 11,000 books so far to date. We ask that you approve the First Things First grant renewal for FY25 in the amount of $60,000. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to help.
Thank you, Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions. Thank you very much for reaching out and helping them get all they can get. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Klein.
And neither do I, Elaine, but thanks for doing this. It's a good program, has been, so appreciate
Yes,
it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. I don't have any questions. With that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve grantee agreement number GRA RC 004-1209-01-Y2 as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Elaine. Motion passes. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn as the Gila County Library Board of Directors and reconvene as the Gila County Board of Supervisors.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Aye. Item 2B, information, discussion, action to authorize the advertisement of invitation for bids. Number 030724, purchase of AR-15 rifles for the Sheriff's Office. And we have Sheriff Shepard, and we also have Ms. White.
Yes, good morning, Chairman, members of the board. I brought the gun expert with me because I figured if you started asking me some questions, it might get a little bit hairy. So we are just coming before you today to ask you guys to advertise for bid. The purpose for this is to purchase 50 AR-15 rifles to standardize the rifles that we have across the board in the Sheriff's Office. And with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no question.
Supervisor Klein.
Sheriff, are you guys aren't packing AR-15s now?
Okay, here, the situation currently is that we have a mixture of some that were donated some 20, 30 years ago.
Oh,
We have some military surplus, which are, all configured different. And we have some that folks carry on their own, and then, of course, some with none. So what we would like to do with this program is standardize this across the board, standardize the training, the equipment, how they're loaded out to where, just kind of like what we did with the sidearms a few years back, so that if there is a situation out there that needs that type of response, everybody's equipment's the same. We can throw you, ammunition if you need it, and it all works exactly the same instead of having this hodgepodge that we have right now.
gotcha. Yeah. So the only other thing I'd say is when you get them all in and you're gonna go break them in and start shooting them, you can send me an invite.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
So.
Yeah, I'll concur with that. So, yeah, I think law enforcement needs to have the kind of equipment that they will meet in the field sometimes. And
Yes.
so this particular profile of a firearm, AR-15, is very common out there. And so I'm going to ask Sarah White. I said, do you know what AR stands for?
Automatic rifle.
No.
No! Armalite rifle.
Armalite.
There you go. See, I
It
told
does
you I
not
brought
stand
the
for-
expert.
Does not stand for assault or automatic,
No, it's
okay?
not.
It's Armalite, and a lot of people don't know that. So it's just a matter of interest. So with that, I'll call for a motion.
May I have a question now that,
Sure.
on that? You're replacing a lot of mismatched rifles. Are those gonna go up for auction?
Well, the military ones, we either have to keep or send back either to the military or to another agency. The ones that are personally owned, of course, they'll just keep those and not bring them to work. And then the ones that are surplus that we own, that doesn't have to go back to the military, will be surplus to, by state regulation to one of the surplus agencies. We have one that we work with pretty constantly, on a constant basis, that does this pretty well, so we'll definitely be working with them to see what the value is.
Okay, and the money for the new rifles is
Yes.
coming from
It's general fund.
general fund?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a project we've been working on and had in the, in the potential budget for a few years. Took us a while to decide what we wanted, how do we want to standardize it, what equipment we wanted. And of course, as you know, if you're a sportsman, I know you are, things change every year. There's always some kind of new gadget or new this or that. So it's been kind of hard to do that part of it, but we're pretty much sure that right now we got what we need, what'll work, what'll be effective, and we can go forward from there. And you know, if there are changes in the future, it'd be smaller modifications instead of a across-the-board purchase.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Of course.
No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Klein, any more?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, with that, I'll call for motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to authorize the advertisement of invitation for bids number 0302724.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. We'll move on to item 2C.
Thank you.
And Sarah White again, information, discussion, action to approve an agreement regarding local border support between the Arizona Department of Public Safety and Gila County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $502,326, which will include salary and employee-related expenses for 1 K-9 sergeant, 2 deputies at a cost of $271,882, and funding for 3 upfitting and K-9 equipped Chevrolet Tahoe vehicles at a cost of $230,444 that will be dispersed for a performance period of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2025.
Hi, good morning again, Chairman, members of the board. If you remember a couple of meetings ago, we presented the task force grant. I stood up and kind of gave you the spill about how I'd be here in a couple of weeks to talk about the border support funding that we would be getting from the Department of Public Safety. So this is it. It will bring just over $500,000 into the sheriff's office, which we have decided would be best used to fund a K-9 sergeant and 2 K-9 deputies, as well as will be reimbursing the county for the K-9 vehicles that were purchased for them. So that's kind of a good win-win for both of us. And then we will also be sitting down internally and working on, these will be K-9 deputies that will be on patrol. So in uniforms and marked cars, but we'll also be working with how they can support the task, the Gila County Drug Gang and Task Force as well. So to benefit Gila County as a whole. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering what our role as a county at the border is going to be, and if the state's wanting all the counties to get together to send officers down to the border.
This was money that we had asked the legislature to redirect toward the sheriffs for the simple reason of the fallout that we have, even being 100 miles north of the border, from the activities down there, the illegal crossings, the drugs that are coming across, money, firearms, the whole problem that's going on certainly affects Gila County, as it does pretty much every county in Arizona. So this is why this money was granted back to us as the sheriffs, where it was being used in other places before, to combat kind of the what's coming across and what we have no control over. So it's not like we're being asked to send resources down there. I wouldn't agree to that, but it is to help us fund those types of activities that we are involved in to kind of counteract what's coming across.
What it's creating for you here.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you very much, because I was
Of
thinking,
course.
Big Brother needs to step in.
It's a
We've
great
got armed
question.
forces. And
Yeah.
so, to ask the counties to go down, and it's like, wait a minute, we're having a hard time keeping staffed here and keep things going here. And so
Absolutely.
I thank you very much for clearing that up, that they're not gonna ask counties to go down.
Well, and this is probably, Sarah probably would agree with me, this is probably the least strings of state money that we've had in a long time, and we kind of hope it stays that way. We've actually been lobbying for them to continue this funding past this year.
Thank you very much.
Supervisor Klein.
So I think this is a great step in the right direction. It'd be nice if we had 6 more of those positions and that were funded, but
Absolutely.
you know, but at least we're kind of headed in the right direction. So I've had that interest for a long time on your task force and have watched what your folks have done, just a few of them that's there, and it's amazing. And so you can't help but think if we had, yeah, how much would help too. So this is a really good thing. Thanks for pushing for that.
Of course. It just demonstrates to me the cost of not having a secure border. It costs us locally, it costs us culturally. And I have noticed over the last few years that there has been a tremendous uptick of a traffic stop turning into a major drug bust. And so it's coming through, I know it's coming through northern Gila County. I'm sure it's coming through everywhere in Gila County, and it's a blight to our culture. So with that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Arizona Department of Public Safety Agreement regarding local border support as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, and let's move on to item 2D, information, discussion, action to ratify the Sheriff's Office electronic submission of 4 FFY 2025 grant applications to the Governor's Office of Highway Safety for law enforcement projects. One is $25,000, of which $20,109 is for personal, and $4,891 is for employee-related expenses. Number 2 is $241,545 to purchase 2 unmarked vehicles. 3 is $10,459 for LiDAR units, and 4 is for $31,028 for intoxilizer. Is that how you say it? Intoxilizer. Okay, that's a word I've never seen before. 9,000 units to be used for speed and DUI enforcement. Adopt resolution number 24-04-03 and authorize the chairman's signature on the certification form, all of which are components of the grant application. And Dennis Newman, you're looking good today.
Good
Sarah.
morning again. Dennis Newman is in a leadership training in Phoenix, so I'm going to step in for him. This is just the normal grant application for the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. If you remember last year, they granted us overtime for speed enforcement throughout Gila County. So what we did this time is we put in 4 applications, again for overtime for speed and DUI enforcement, 2 unmarked vehicles, LiDAR units, which are for speed enforcement, and then of course the 3 Intoxilizer 9,000 units, which are used for DUI enforcement. So with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions, Mr.
Supervisor Klein.
I think this is a good deal. I mean, Intoxilizer, do you guys already have some of those too, right? I mean, they work good?
We-
And so,
This is an update. If make sure I'm speaking correctly, I believe that we have an older unit. So the Intoxilizer 9,000 is like the newest, latest, greatest. So we just put in to replace the ones that we have.
and is that actually carried in the patrol rig with them?
So that's not. The PBT is which is the portable one, which is
Okay.
the little one. The governor's office funded those maybe 8 years ago. I remember doing a grant for those when I was first with the sheriff. So those are the portable ones. These are actually the like units that are in these substations. So when they come in to sit down, they're either drawing blood or putting them on the breathalyzer machine in the actual substations and offices.
Okay, cool deal. Well, thanks. Good deal.
Thank you, Sarah. I have no questions, so with that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to ratify the Sheriff's Office electronic submission for FFY 2025 grant applications to the Governor's Office of Highway Safety for law enforcement projects and adopt resolution number 24-04-03 and authorize the chairman's signature on the certification.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Sarah. Item 2E, information discussion action to authorize the Sheriff's Office Department and submittal of a grant application for fiscal year 2025 911 program, funding in the amount of $141,732 to support Gila 911 network infrastructure and services for the Payson Police Department and Gila County Sheriff's Office, and include defined project requests that may also be approved in the award for the performance period of July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025. We have Ms. Williams with us.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This is the annual grant request for your authorization to submit for the grant. This year, the amount of the grant is pretty stable because of our AT&T purchase order that we're in our third year of a 5-year purchase order, 5-year agreement. And so there is a minimum cost that will be submitted, which is the $140,732. Above and beyond that, we will be asking for projects. And since I wrote this item, we have 2 projects, one for Payson and one for Gila County, that I'm asking for an additional 911 seat. So that right now, Gila County has 3 seats. The town of Payson has 4. Gila County can add an additional seat up to 4 seats, and I think remain stable in the amount of funding that is needed to support that. Other than the monthly cost may go up a little, or I'm sorry, not the monthly cost, there's just an installation cost. And then for the town of Payson, whether they can continue with their same monthly cost or have an increase, I've put in for both of those, the installation and a possible increase for to support their additional seat. We'll see if the state will approve it. They have not approved it for the last 4 years, but we're doing a lot more with NG 911, and we're needing more people, and we have increased our staffing, and so I can show that we actually need that additional seat above and beyond what we have right now. Okay, so the projects right now are looking at $86,000. As long as I don't add anything else. If anything else comes up, though, with my discussions with the state, I may be adding additional requests to that. But the projects are not necessarily, I don't know if the projects will be approved. I do know that our base amount will be approved. With that, I can take any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Klein.
Deborah, do you guys have pretty good luck finding dispatchers and whatnot and keeping them, or?
Recently, we, in this last year, about the last year, we've had some really good candidates come in, and we're able to keep them, get them through training. So right now, we have increased our staff by about 4 total, 5 maybe, I think, in the last 2 years.
Okay,
So
good.
it's very, very helpful. We are still very understaffed, but I'll let Sarah continue that answer.
I just wanted to let you guys know, I always like to bring to your attention that we worked with county management a couple of years ago when we brought on the town of Miami and the Tono Apache tribe. So when we brought on those contracts, it allowed us to create like a stipend for the dispatchers that we paid directly to them. And so when we were allowed to do that, it has really opened our hiring pool quite a bit. So when I left the office yesterday, we had 4 vacancies. That's with the the positions that we have budgeted. We had 4 openings and 1 near the end of the background process. So, I mean, that's pretty substantial for us, considering what vacancy rate we've had in the past.
Sure, so that stipend really made a difference.
It did make a difference for them.
Good,
So.
good deal. That's good to
It's
hear.
very helpful. But-
Yeah,
And considering that for the last, since the COVID years, our staff has been working mandatory 12-hour shifts, so 4 days a week at a minimum, and many of them have worked so much more than that because of understaffing. And so with these increased positions being hired, we are on the road to changing the schedule to 410s. So, but we have to do that over, since it's 24/7, it's a little bit of a juggle, but it is getting better. So it's giving people better.
Good. I would
It's
imagine
giving
those,
people hope.
yeah, I would imagine those 12-hour shifts is a little bit tough on people too.
It can be brutal. It can be.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you for all
Thank
that.
you.
A lot of challenges. So just so everyone can kind of know, about how many 911 calls do you process in a year's time?
We process approximately, the annual report, I believe, says somewhere around 40,000 40,000 calls are dispatched. Of those, about 25 are actual 911 calls. So, our call rate has stayed relatively stable over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
But because of our increased abilities and increased population, there's just so much more to do with phone calls now. There's text to 911. We're looking at
Right.
the incoming photos, incoming videos. We have not started that yet, but it is something that, as a future project, we're looking at a real-time crime center. And so those things are part of a real-time crime center. So there are quite a few additional bells and whistles that come with that. So it's not, you really, because of the mapping softwares, the alerting notification softwares, there's a lot more technical need, a lot of more technical tasks associated with than there ever used to be.
I can see that, and it'll only get more and more as time goes by. So thank you for that presentation. With that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the Sheriff's Office development and submittal of a grant application for fiscal year 2025 911 program funding as presented.
And Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Item 2F is information discussion action to approve funding agreement number 120-24 between the Arizona Department of Housing and Gila County Public Health and Community Services Department to receive $150,107 of Arizona Department of Housing Community Development Block Grant Regional Account Funds for the period of February 1, 2024 through September 15, 2025 for housing rehabilitation. Paula Horn, good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you, Chairman, members of the board. I'm here today with my community service hat on, and we are receiving your some additional funding from the regional account with the Community Development Block Grant. We've already received some funding, and this is additional funding that Apache Junction did not wish to use. So we will take that if you will approve that. So this funding will allow us to do rehabilitation for approximately 5 low-income to moderate households in Gila County. And we have until September to actually utilize this $150,000. And we are doing, we have fantastic staff. We have a new staff member. Estelle is in the audience, but she has an additional person with her, and they are doing a great job with getting into these households and getting through the rehabilitation process. So we're asking today that you approve this so that we can continue and keep adding more rehab. So, any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Paula.
Sure.
Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, my regular question, this is money that needs to be certified, the contractor needs to be certified in order to qualify for these positions.
Yes, this is
Okay,
the one that
and
requires
Have we
quite a
had
bit of
any
process.
local contractors interested in being certified as of yet?
No.
Okay, then I will.
And we do still have, I believe we are going to have, are we having a work session on the, or were we just going to have a meeting to discuss? Because I know that came, we were talking a little bit about the contractors.
Yeah, we can
before.
get with Mr.
So,
O'Driscoll on that. I think
yeah.
he's the one that was kind of working on the program and.
Yeah, so
and
we were,
yeah, we're gonna
yeah.
try to see what we can do.
And honestly, they use a lot of the contractors that we use are being used from everyone across the state. But because we have a fabulous person, and they've worked with us for many, many years, we tend to go to the top of the list because they know that what we're going to provide for them is what they need to submit to actually get payment. So, I mean, 20 years of experience doing it, does pay off, so. Yeah, and I mean, it's just a long process, I believe, and it's very tedious, but.
Yeah,
we'll see if
I
we
just,
can-
we approve a lot of money and I think it's a great program. I would just like to see some local contractors interested in taking part in
Right.
some of this funding that could stay in Gila County, so. That's,
agree.
that's my only question and I appreciate all you do, thank you.
Supervisor Klein.
Paula, is there any other money out there we can get?
How much more do you, no, I'm just kidding.
As
You know
much as
what?
we can find.
Every meeting, I think you just keep us a little place on the agenda, because they just we ask, they usually fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these, like this one, they're like, so, Gila County, would you like to take? And so we do,
No, it's
that's why
great.
we're here before you, almost every meeting, so.
Yeah, no, it's
Which
great.
is great, it's fabulous. It is a lot of work, and the staff are doing, and it's a lot of work for the homeowners as well.
Right.
So, it is coordination of that is a little difficult, but yeah, any money that, we think, but we do want to be conscientious and spend what we can too. We don't want to take $1 million and expect to spend
That's
that
right.
here, with our resources. So,
But with that being said, Paula, I would imagine there's just a long list of applicants for these projects, right?
yes. We do have a waiting list. We've been going through the waiting list and, because people change, I mean, your status changes, your situation, your income. So, yeah, we do have a list of people kind of waiting to see, if additional funding is coming, so. And they're running active, and, they have different lists that they're running, one is being completed and one is being started, and can we get them together on the same day? So there's a lot of coordination done, so.
Well,
yeah.
thanks for everything you ladies are
Thank
doing.
you.
It's great, so.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. And this is just another demonstration of how Gila County budget, we receive a lot of grant money. So it's not dependent on property taxes to do all this. Probably almost 2/3 of our budget is grant money. So we need to be out grabbing as much of that as we can. It helps our citizens. So with that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the Arizona Department of Housing Funding Agreement number 120-24.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Item 2G is information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 2 to funding agreement number 203-24 between the Arizona Department of Housing and Gila County Public Health and Community Services Department Housing Services Weatherization Program to use low-income home energy assistance program funding and increase the amount of the contract by $349,648.68 for a total contract of $776,079.68 for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Ella Gore.
Good morning, Chairman
Good morning.
Christensen, Supervisor Humphrey, Supervisor Klein. I am here today to present the second amendment to funding agreement 20324 between Gila County and the Arizona Department of Housing. This amendment pertains to our low-income home energy assistance program. The proposed amendment seeks to increase our funding by $349,648.68. This adjustment will bring the total value of the agreement to $776,079.68. This does not alter the time frame of the agreement. The current end date is June 30th, 2024, and this will increase our required weatherization units to 46. We are seeking your approval for this amendment as it will enable us to provide crucial weatherization assistance to eligible citizens in Gila County.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey?
Would, this money will go to one contracting firm?
This money will mainly be spent through Advantage Home Pro, yes, because they are our weatherization contractors that we go with mostly, because they've done really good work for us.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I understand, and you gotta do what you gotta do. But I would like to take this material and show it to some of our local contractors and said, could you use another $1 million through your account in a year? You know, I mean, it's kind of worth the education. And so,
Yes.
anyway, that's why I ask, and it's not to put you on the spot, it's just like, I'm trying to help some of these guys that would, you know, could use an extra $1 million a year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Klein?
Stella, how many extra homes would we be able to do with that money, did you say?
This will bring our required units up to 46. So
46.
it increases it by 13 because we
Okay.
are right. 'cause
And you're probably the same way, you keep a long list of people that want the weatherization and all that done?
That's correct. Yep, Estelle Bellardi. She's 20
Yeah.
years of experience. She's got it down.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Stella. With that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve amendment number 2 to Arizona Department of Housing Funding Agreement number 203-24 as presented.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you,
Thank
Stella. Item 2H, information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 4 to an intergovernmental agreement contract number CTR 055258 with the Arizona Department of Health Services for the funding of Title V Maternal and Child Healthy Arizona Families Initiative to revise the price sheet for the public health improvement portion of the contract to $48,652. And we have Kaylee, not Joshua.
No, not Joshua.
Good
tonight.
morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is just a small adjustment to the price sheet for this portion of the block grant. This portion of the grant that I'm grateful to manage is where our community health improvement plan comes from. So that's been something really great to work on with our community stakeholders. And in addition to that plan, we also have been able to develop a software that tracks our staff education, all of our grant activities, our immunizations for our community members, and then any community education requests that we've gotten. So this funding, while small, has been great for our department. So open to any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions.
Supervisor Klein.
I'm good, Kaylee, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Kaylee, for that. And so with that, I'll call for motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve amendment number 4 to Arizona Department of Health Services, intergovernmental agreement contract number CTR 055258 as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
And we have a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Item 2I, information, discussion, action to authorize the advertisement of invitation for bids, number 032124, Northern Gila County Water Storage System Project. Carl, good morning.
Morning, Chairman, board members. Really excited to bring this before you. This is the request for bids for the actual tanks for the Northern Gila County Water Storage Project. So we met with the Fire Chiefs Association, which also includes DFFM and the Forest Service, to kind of come up with the specs of adequate tanks that would replace the existing bladders with something a little more durable, long-lasting. We got that quote, or the request for bids together with exactly what we need to make sure that it's universal, fits all the machines that they may be using, is compatible with the dip tanks. So we got that together and we're ready to go forward and seek bids for that. Any questions?
Thank you, Carl. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, and the amount of tanks that we were replacing?
So this will be acquiring 56 tanks, which will put 4 per each of the 14 sites. Each of the tanks is 5,000 gallons, which will put 20,000 gallons at each site. The bladders are kind of all different shapes and sizes. So there is an average of 20,000 gallons of capacity at each site, which is what we, the association deemed adequate. But again, it varies from site to site and how many of the tanks or the existing bladders are actually functional at the time.
Okay, yeah, so there's 14 sites.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Some of those sites have, you know, a 10,000 gallon bladder, some have 220s. I mean, it really varies. And then again, depending on the condition, if it's still standing, still holding water. And the plan is also when we roll these out, we will run them parallel just for the increased capacity until those bladders fail, and then we can eliminate them as they fail instead of continuing the constant maintenance.
Thank you.
Supervisor Klein.
Carl, thanks for picking this up and getting back on it. This was something we addressed a long time ago. And so first question is what kind of price difference are we gonna see in our tanks now versus?
I believe the bladders were military surplus, but the tanks, I mean, the price is increasing. I mean, I've gotten
That's what
quotes.
I was curious. I don't care about the bladders because we can't
Oh, yeah.
replace those, but the poly tanks,
It's been, I mean, the first quote that I got was in the neighborhood of 265. The last quote I got was in the neighborhood of 310. We did decide to go with the 5,000 gallon instead of the 10,000 gallon. One, because that saves a huge amount in transportation fees, because anything over the 5,000 gallon tank is going to require a wide load transport.
right?
And then also, I mean, you guys are intimately familiar with some of these areas. That's not somewhere you want to take a wide load vehicle. So this also creates somewhat of a redundancy. These tanks won't be tied together. So if something happens and there's a failure on one tank, it's not a failure on all the tanks. They'll operate independently. But yeah, the price kind of with the economy has increased. So I would guess that we're probably going to spend in the neighborhood on the tanks of $325,000. But again, with the earmark funding, that will help with that tremendously.
Yeah, but the offshoot of that earmark funding, and Mr. James can help me here, but that was a 1-to-1 match, wasn't it?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, this was congressionally directed spending, and I do not believe that there was any match.
Okay.
The congressionally directed spending was up to $600,000, and so it should cover any costs, including transportation, and installation, and fully implementing the whole project. So I believe there's plenty of money to cover all of it.
So we still should be good with the 600,000 to cover the whole project? Okay.
Uh-oh. Here comes.
Here comes money lady.
Sorry to burst your bubble, guys. It was a 1-to-1 match. We
Yeah.
are
Oh.
required to match the 600,000.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's what I thought.
But this money is sitting with the Forest Service, and once we get this moving forward, we'll be able to apply to them to get the money sent to us. Sorry.
No, that's what I was thinking, Maren, so I'm glad you clarified
I
that.
gotta rain on everybody's parade.
You know,
That's,
Still, 1-to-1 match is good.
I want to thank Maren for saying that so I didn't have to. I still believe that this will be cost effective moving in the future because this is going to require significantly less maintenance. The existing bladders have been a victim of vandalization many times in the past, both from human and the wildlife that likes to tread on them and damage them. These will also hold water better on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I don't think I saw a single one of those bladders that doesn't have some sort of leak or patch on it where they're just constantly losing water. These won't have that issue for quite some time.
so this is just for the tanks. The rest of the contract has already been let out, right?
Correct. The contract is awarded. Once we get the approval for the tanks, or the bids for the tanks, we can bring the best bidder forward, and then we're ready to hit the ground.
Okay, and so what's our time frame?
I'm, fingers crossed, I'm thinking that we can get this done this summer. Fingers crossed.
How about by the end of May?
I'd like that. If we can get this before the board.
I guess,
and
and
approve.
I'm throwing this out there because we're way behind the power curve on this one. Some got dropped, and here we are facing another fire season that I think it's a hard one to explain under that rim why our bladders aren't in place. So the sooner the better we can get those going. I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Carl.
Yes, thank you, Carl. Yeah, this is something we've been hoping for a while. So the maximum amount we can get from the grant is $609,000. We have to match 50%, but we should be well under that, I think, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Carl, thank you for that. So with that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, move to authorize the advertisement invitation for bid number 032124.
And Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
2J, information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 1 to collection agreement number 070623 with the Arizona Game and Fish Department to extend the term of the contract through August 30th, 2024, with a not to exceed amount of $284,674,000. Good morning, Homero.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. So this item is to approve an extension of time with a contract that we have with Arizona Game and Fish. This is not about an increased dollar amount. We just want to give them enough time for them to bill us for the work that they're doing. And back in August 1st of 2023, the Board of Supervisors approved a collection agreement with Arizona Game and Fish for the Tonto Creek Bridge project. And the reason the board was asked to make that approval was that the biological opinion that was issued required a qualified certified biologist to monitor the construction footprint at grade crossing action areas and in areas affected by the proposed action to avoid incidental take of the northern Mexican garter snake, the yellow-billed cuckoo, and the southwestern willow flycatcher. I did read a report from Arizona Game and Fish, and they had relocated 17 snakes up until the point that I read that report a couple of months ago. They did not find that at that point any Mexican garter snakes. So we have an assigned biological monitor there that is every day before the start of work. And they provide the monitoring as well as training and other things like that, and it fulfills the requirements of the biological opinion. So they're going to be there till the end of construction. Again, the bridge is scheduled to be basically completed for traffic end of May, with all work completed by our grand opening scheduled for June 22nd. And with that, we would like to ask the board to approve the amendment number 1 to this collection agreement.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no comment.
Supervisor Klein.
Thanks, Homer. We really don't have a choice but to approve this amendment, because without that person sitting out there, we can't be building a bridge. And that's just reality of it. So thank you for putting it all together.
And thank you, Homero. So they relocated 17. Did they find any cuckoos?
I don't remember they being mentioned in that report, so I don't believe they did.
Okay, good. With that, I'll call for motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve amendment number 1 to Arizona Game and Fish Department Collection Agreement number 070623 as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Homero. Item 2K, information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 1 to contract 120422, the Roosevelt Lake Resort Stagecoach Trail Improvement Project in the amount of $91,151.89, increasing the total contract amount to $761,226.89. Homero.
Thank you. I was ready to present this item, but our county engineer would like to present it, Tom Goodman. And before I turn it over to him, I would just like to say a couple of things. Number 1, this is about a change order. But behind and inside of that change order is a tremendous achievement that the team went through. We turned this stone, I don't know how many times, to find the very best solution that we could. And we ended up with bearing the burden of if there was a water main break, that we would repair it. And that's actually what took place. The project completed. It's conveying water the way it was designed to. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tom Goodman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. So as Homero mentioned, this is a request for amendment number 1 for the Stagecoach Trail project, which has been completed now for several weeks. A little history: back in September of last year, the board approved contract with Vices in Construction, and that was for $668,800, and that included contingency of 10%, which was $60,800. So we had 5 change orders during the project, totaling $153,226.89. That brought the total cost of the project to $761,226.89. After we had deducted out our owner's contingency and a $1,275 credit on some work from the construction firm, we need to ask for an amendment to the contract for an amount of $91,151.89. We had, so on the change orders, we had 5 change orders total. One of them was a delay change order. We changed the thickness of the asphalt. That was another change order. We had to lower 2 water mains. We had to fix a couple leaks on the water mains. And so those totaled up to the 5 change orders that we had. So we're here today to ask for an amendment to this contract. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I can't say enough about this project, other thank staff very, very much. It's a project I started on 8 years ago, and we've got it complete, and it drains a community that used to yards hold water with septic tanks in those yards, and there's 6 inches of water in the yard. So the drainage of this project, to watch it go where it needs to go back to the creek is amazing. And so I appreciate everybody's efficiency in working through difficulties, because we went through property owners and had to purchase property, had to get easements. Then water company owners change, and that we put off time for trying to work with those new water owners to help us with the project, and on, and it's just been painstaking. But staff, thank you very much for your continued and making a project a success, and just hanging on to it like a bulldog. Like I say, 8 years ago when this started. So hats off to you, and thank you very much. And I can't say enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, I'd echo those same comments. You know, you guys did an awesome job on that, and that is gonna help a lot of people right there in that neighborhood, and it's good. I mean, for all the hurdles and challenges that you guys were faced with, that's good, pulling that one out of the hat and get it done, so, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, very challenging project. Thank you, Tom. With that, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I have moved to approve amendment number 1 to contract number 120422 with Vicious Engineering Construction Incorporated as presented.
And I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion to approve in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Item 2L, information, discussion, action to approve an agreement between Gila County and Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center, which authorizes the use of the parking lot adjacent to the Gila County Globe Road Yard located at 1001 West Besich, how do you say that? Besich Boulevard in Globe. Romero.
Thank you. This is an agreement that we're asking the board to approve between Gila County and Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center to allow the use of the Globe Road Yard parking lot for the annual health fair that the hospital conducts every year. The agreement provides for indemnification and insurance favorable to the county. It satisfies the indemnification and our insurance requirements. And that is a big objective for this agreement. In exchange for allowing them to use the parking lot, the hospital will provide favorable public relations for the county. And so there is a state statute 2011-201 paragraph A that says the powers of the county shall be exercised only by the Board of Supervisors or by the agents and officers acting under its authority and the authority of the law. It has the power to make such orders for the disposition or use of its property as the interests of the inhabitants of the county required. So working with the county's attorneys, we use that to enable us to bring to you this agreement that we're asking you to approve. In exchange for the use of the parking lot, at Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center will advertise the Gila County's partnership at the annual health fair. And with that, we ask that you approve the agreement with Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center for the purpose of that additional parking at our Globe Road Yard for the annual health fair on April 20th, 2024.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I thank staff very much for working with the Cobra Valley Regional Medical on helping them with their health fair. It's a great thing. It does a lot of things for the people of Gila County, and they work real hard to be a great partner in the community and Gila County in general. So thank you very much for working with them on that.
Supervisor Klein.
One more things. You know, this is one thing that I look at is we need to be helping as many people in Gila County as we can. Those folks are all of our constituents. And so anytime we can pull something together, and I know we're always up against the gifting clause and who has to do what for who, but anytime we can work through that and be able to pull something off like this, it's a plus, especially for us. And it's a big help to our constituents. So thank you so much.
If I could, Chairman and Supervisor Klein, we actually, this is something that the County Attorney, Jessica Chabelli, helped us put together. And this is different than an IGA or some other agreement that we have. This is a little simpler, and it's an agreement that just satisfies our insurance and indemnification. And I look forward to utilizing this in the future and finding perhaps even an easier way to do this, working with our county attorney.
Mr. Chair, if I may, simpler is always better, Homer, from where I stand. And we get bogged down in all of our processes, sometimes to the point we don't know if we're coming or going. So if you can make any of that better, that's going to be a good deal.
Thank you. Thank you, Homero. With that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve an agreement between Gila County and Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries. Item 2M, information discussion action to approve amendment number 1 to contract number 010522-1 with Payson Concrete and Materials to extend the contract for one additional year from February 7th, 2024 to February 6th, 2025 with a not to exceed amount of $154,077.51. Homero.
Thank you. Again, this is an amendment, it's amendment number 1 to a contract that we have with Payson Concrete for the purchase of double wash chips. It totals $154,077, and it will provide sufficient 3/8 chips to chip seal 18 miles of roads this year. I think that's the highest level that we've done, and that approaches the amount of mileage that we should be doing every year if we were to chip seal our roads every 10 years. So it's an accomplishment by the team. We will be doing chipping and chip sealing in Globe, Globe, Strawberry, and Young are the 3 areas that we're going to be, and we're going to be working starting on May 13th, from the 13th through the 23rd of May, and then starting up again in June from the 3rd through the 20th. And in the June timeframe, we'll be at Strawberry Young, and in the May timeframe, we'll be in Globe. If you were to add the cost of the oil and the chips, they add up to about $500,000, and that's about, from a material cost for just the chip seal operation, it's around $30,000 a mile. And so again, it continues to be an efficient way for us to address our paved roads. And with that, we ask for you to approve this amendment number 1.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions other than, again, thank you very much for us doing our own chipping. And I know it takes a lot of staff from the sign shop and everything. So there's projects that we get behind on, especially roads that need to be bladed. But in the long run, being able to take care of our chip seal roads and get that done for the cost that we're able to do it It's worth taking the phone calls for some of our roads that don't get attention to maintain our other roads. So thank you very much for continue to support, letting us support you in chipping. It makes a big difference on our roads. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein?
Homer, is Payson Concrete the only one to supply chips? Or is there any other outfit, or an outfit down here that supplies them, or?
No, there's various companies that would supply chips. I don't remember the ones that we reviewed at the last time we went out for quotes, but the chips are, in the state of Arizona, the chips are offered by many different companies.
I'm asking this question for Payson Concrete to haul the chips for this globe area down here for our chip sealing. I just would think there's somebody here locally that would be able to provide that.
So when we chip in Strawberry and Globe and Young, they haul for us. When we chip in Tonto Basin, we haul ourselves. We could, if we had the manpower, could chip ahead of time, because actually we stockpile chips ahead of time. And so again, it would be taking up our team. Would we want our team to do that, or would we want somebody else to be doing that? The chip sealing operation does take, I'm going to say, a couple of months for our team. And this year, for the first time, we're actually going to leave some people behind at the road yards to handle some emergency calls, etc. In previous years, it was everybody. And this year, because we've added a few folks in the last 6 months to our road yards, filled some of those vacancies, not adding headcount, we filled some of those vacancies. And so we're able to leave 1 or 2 folks behind that are going to try to take some of the emergency calls that we get. So it's a decision for us to make in the future whether we haul or pay for the hauling.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but I'm going to go back to this question is there not another outfit down here that would provide chips?
We need to look into that.
Mm-hmm.
To see if there's, if we want to address our purchasing of chips on a more regional basis, so that we don't end up with having to add up what's the total cost for all of Gila County. Maybe we do, maybe we request for prices and are able to split up depending on the region. If it's in Globe, maybe somebody can offer it cheaper here in Globe. And if it's Payson, somebody can offer it cheaper in Payson. And that the contracting that we go out would allow us to split the contract that way if the price was in favor of Gila County.
I'd appreciate you looking into that. You know, it seems like more recently, we're always getting the question of how are we spending money in Payson compared to Globe or vice versa and things like that. And so to give both ends of our county a shot at something would be a pretty good deal. So thank you, Homer.
Okay. Thank you, Homero. With that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve amendment number 1, contract number 010522-1 with Payson Concrete Materials as presented.
And I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you,
Thank
Homero. 2N, information discussion action to adopt resolution number 24-04-04, which authorizes the execution of a intergovernmental agreement number 24-0009581-I between Gila County and the state of Arizona, acting by and through the Arizona Department of Transportation for the Golden Hill Road Sidewalk Final Phase Project. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Board. Thank you for having me. This is a request to adopt resolution number 24-0404 for the execution of the intergovernmental agreement IGA 24-0009581-I. So it's between the state of Arizona through the Department of Transportation and Gila County. As you guys know, between 2019 and 2023, Gila County engineering staff worked on a sidewalk in Golden Hills. And through the course of that project, we found out that we were going to have a shortfall in funding. And in order to keep the project going, we truncated the project between Alberta and Elm. That project finished summer of last year, and since then, we've been searching for funding to finish that project. In January of this year, we received a transportation alternative grant, which is a federal grant which requires ADOT administration. So this IGA is between ADOT and Gila County in order to administer this TA grant for us so that we can complete the project so that the sidewalk will go from University all the way up to Main Street.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Supervisor Humphrey.
Again, hats off to staff for being project-minded and hanging on to something like a bulldog. Like you say, it started in 19, and it started construction, and then there was some lawsuits because of utilities and things. But you know, thank you guys, because you could have just dropped it and, you know, things of that nature because it was difficult, but you didn't. You just kept at it and kept reaching for funding. By the time we got funding, like you say, we had to cut the project in half, but you guys just kept reaching and reaching and getting the funding to do phase 2 of that project. And so, again, I can't thank staff enough for being project oriented and continuing to work at these projects, because it would be a lot easier sometimes to say we can't and you don't. So I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you.
Supervisor Klein.
Alex, thanks. What's the scheduled completion date for this? Do you know?
Our goal is to have it done by the end of the calendar year.
By the end of the calendar year? Okay, good deal, thanks.
Yes, thank you, Alex. And with that, I'll call for motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to adopt resolution number 240404.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to item 2O, information discussion action to approve contract agreement number CTR 059886 with Frontier Technology LLC, doing business as Micro Age in the amount of $57,899.18 for the purchase of 7 Cisco Meraki 48 port switches and 7 Cisco Meraki 24 port switches as part of the IT department's 7-year replacement plan. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. We're looking to purchase 14 Meraki switches, 7 24 port and 7 48 port switches. This will help us update our equipment and stay on track with our 7-year replacement plan. The old equipment will be used for training our technicians. If they are not in working order, we'll dispose of them properly. And just to let you know, this is our last scheduled capital request we'll be making for the fiscal 2024 fiscal year. So I can answer any questions y'all may have.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no questions.
Okay, Supervisor Klein?
I'm sure I have questions, but I'm not even sure what this all means, Carrie. So anyway, thanks for putting that together.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Carrie. And with that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve contract agreement number CTR 059886 with Frontier Technology LLC, DBA Micro Age as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Item 2P, information discussion action to approve economic development agreement number 03192024 between Gila County and the Payson Pro Rodeo Committee Incorporated in the amount of $20,000, which the board has determined to be for the benefit of the public. And this is my item, and we also have with us the president of the Payson Rodeo Committee, Dan Weil. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, thank you. And
okay.
so
I wasn't sure if the mic was on.
Yeah, it's on. So this is an annual request that we have offered to the rodeo committee to be benefit of the public. They do a tremendous job. And just to let you know how the split of money will be for everyone, it's $15,000 from Mr. Menlove's account for such activity and $5,000 from my constituent funds. So tell us, Dan, what does the Payson Pro Rodeo do for Gila County?
Okay. Well, I got the request and I have that laying in front of you there. So I'm just going to kind of briefly go over this. And like Steve said, it is a request for $20,000, and he told you how it would be broken out. Our advertising funds, and this is how we will be using the finances. We advertise for the Gary Hart Memorial Rodeo, and that's about $10,000. And the world's oldest continuous rodeo, we advertise out of town for like $19,531. And this is what it does for the town. It actually, our occupancy and our room rates at our motels equates out to about 1,155 people staying here for 2 nights, or 2,310. And if you equate that out with the AOT estimates, that comes out to about $681,000 that is brought back into the town, and also to Gila County. Also, there is the other attendance at the rodeos. There's a total of 9,500. Actually, there was 14,000 people that came to the rodeos last year. And of that amount, 7,500 of those were from out of town. And we calculate that they spent between $150 and $195 on fuel and food. And so that is approximately another $1.4 million in spending, for a total of $2,081,450. In addition to the economic impact for the rodeos, all proceeds that we get distributed back to the community. And that, like I said, equated to about $40,000 last year. It goes back to charitable contributions made to breast cancer support groups and to those supporting our veterans and school activities. And then we have additionally down there exactly what the sponsorships are for the rodeo. And our production costs are approximately $315,000 a year. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Dan, for that presentation. Supervisor Humphrey.
Well, thank you very much for all you do putting this rodeo on, and I've appreciated being part of that rodeo and helping sponsor and you guys to do that. And I'm really happy to be doing that. A question that I'm going to ask is, does the town of Payson contribute anything to the Payson Rodeo?
They do contribute in the way of their employees preparing the ground. And the police officers are, actually we do a trade out with them very similar to what this is for the county and sponsorships for the rodeo. And I think, I don't have that number in front of me, Tim, but if I remember correctly, it was about 15,000 for the May rodeo, and there's about 23,000 then for the August rodeo.
Well, good, yeah, then I'd like to thank them for helping you with the rodeo, and I've had people ask me that, so that's the reason I asked the question. And from down here, I don't really always know what's going on up north.
Yeah.
And so thank you very much, and Tom Payson, thank you for helping the rodeo as well.
Supervisor Klein.
Dan, thanks. You know, we've been a part of this for the 8 years we've been on the board, and it's always been a good thing. You know, the amount of people you guys have up there in Payson is absolutely a plus for the county. Sheriff might not think that all the time, but but anyway, it is good, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And I as well, I'm glad to see Payson involved with it, you know, and those folks helping you out. It's a huge plus. So thanks for all you do.
Yes, thank you, Dan. This really just shows, too, that this is one of the gems that we have in Gila County. It's the world's oldest continuous rodeo. Really, the origins of rodeo began on Main Street in Payson, and for you guys to continue on that tradition is really great, and the amount that we can contribute is multiplied tenfold, 100-fold. So thank you for that. And I don't really have any other questions. I think it would be great if we could also have a rodeo reestablished in the southern part of the county as we develop that property. As you can see, it really brings in a lot of people. So with that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve Economic Development Agreement Number 92024, which the board has determined to be for the benefit of the public.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Item 2Q, information discussion action to approve Economic Development Agreement Number 032624 between Gila County and Veterans Helping Veterans Incorporated in the amount of $5,000 to assist veterans of Gila County and their families, which the board has determined for the benefit of the public. This is my item. It'll be paid for through my constituent funds. It is something I've given in the past. Veterans Helping Veterans is a powerful group there in northern Arizona. Northern Gila County, and looks like we have representatives from them, and so they do a lot of transportation and other things. I will let them go ahead and expand on the benefits that they are doing for the public. So, good morning.
Good morning, panel. My name is Rich Kudliski. I'm with Veterans Helping Veterans. Last year, 2023, we were able to help more than 60 households with the emergency assistance is what we call it, for utilities and emergency needs of the household. These funds go a long way with the transportation and helping the families of the veterans well.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the young lady?
She does a lot of our grant work.
Okay, good.
Been instrumental in helping there.
All right, appreciate that. Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no questions other than thank you very, very much for the service that you did and the service that you're providing now.
Thank you.
Supervisor Klein?
And that goes along with me as well, and it's really good to be able to sit here and help support you guys on that as well, and we'll visit some more here in the future, so thanks.
Yes, thank you. We do have a lot of veterans in Gila County and have a lot of need there, and so I'm happy to support Veterans Helping Veterans in that way. So with that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve Economic Development Agreement Number 032624, which the board has determined to be for the benefit of the public.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Board.
Okay, item 2R, information discussion action to approve Economic Development Agreement Number 03122024 between Gila County and the George Belvado Jr. Memorial Sports Association in the amount of $10,000, which will be used toward the construction of a meeting and exhibition building at the Belvado Park in San Carlos, which the board has determined to be for the benefit of the public. Supervisor Klein.
Thank you. So this is Belvedere Park right there in San Carlos. Wilbur's the one in charge of it right now, and I've supported Wilbur pretty much all the time I've been in office. Done an awesome job with this ballpark. And if anybody has a chance to go down there and see it, I'd really suggest you do that and take a look. He does a lot with the kids right there. They have a lot of games right there locally. This exhibit and meeting building is right there at the park. This 10,000 is only part of it. He's got other money coming in to help him as well. And so this will be a great addition to what they have and a place they can use. So with that, I'd entertain any questions.
Supervisor Humphrey.
I don't have any questions other than, thanks for helping the youth. It's amazing what those baseball fields do.
Mm-hmm.
One over in Central Heights, we work with it, and the kids that are there in the evening's amazing, and so I think it's great that you're able to do something for them in their sovereign nation with the help of the kids. I appreciate it.
Yes, good job. It's anything that helps kids get away from the keyboard, in essence.
Yeah.
do something physical and outside. So with that, I'll call for motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve Economic Development Agreement Number 03122-024, which the board has determined to be for the benefit of.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Now on to item 2S, information, discussion, action to ratify the Board of Supervisors' approval to submit a proposal to the Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity in the amount of $306,140 for Gila County Summer Work Program and approved grant agreement number OEO-Quality Job-24-06 in the amount of $306,000. $306,140, and I have Supervisor Klein and Kathy Melvin on this one.
So I'll take the lead on this, and Kathy will correct me when I'm wrong. This was an opportunity that hit us when I was invited to a governor's roundtable in Superior. And there was, I don't know, a dozen of us sitting around the table with the governor. And at those roundtables, what they do is they go around and each of you kind of give an update of what's going on and projects or issues or whatever. And when they came to me, I was telling them about different things, Gila County. But I told the governor, I said, you know, one thing that I wanted to set out there is the fact of our youth program. We started it 8 years ago, and it's really been going good, and we have a good success and everything. And the governor doesn't say anything, but her staff's writing and writing. All the time I'm talking, they're writing. So we get all done, and everybody gets up and shaking hands, getting ready to walk away. Staff comes over to me and Kathy and says, hey, we want to talk to you guys about your youth program. So they did. They set it up on a Zoom call. Me and Kathy participated in that and asked us the ins and outs of our youth program. The big difference in Arizona, and with the youth especially, is on the WIOA areas, they have a lot of money for youth. But the problem is it's mostly for out-of-school youth. So like the kids that are going to school, they're not eligible to apply. And so there's these eligibility requirements that WIA has that a lot of kids can't hit. And I've always said that that's just they're just hammering those kids that's wanting to get an education and by cutting them out of those programs. I still believe that. And we don't do that. We never have done that. You know, these ladies with HR, they go through there and the kids apply and we do the interviews and we put kids on board, you know, and away we go. And it's worked out very, very well. So we explained all that to them and they really liked it. There was a lady that got back with Kathy and kind of up there, I would say kind of the head of the finances of WIOA. Okay. Anyway, she went through it with Kathy and Mr. Minlove worked up 3 different options for them. The first option was to finance all of it, pay for the whole program in Gila County. And our one was a partial, and our one was to put on workshops, however it was. So what came about was she contacted us back and said, hey, if you can spend the money by the end of June, we'll fund it all. And so getting with Mr. Minlove and working out a few minor little details, we said absolutely we can do that. And so with that in mind, they're putting in this $300,000+ for our youth program this year. What that does is last year we were able to put about 60 some odd kids in there. We'll be able to do that again, but also we worked with the YCC crews, the Arizona Conservation Corps, through the Forest Service and helped finance and put all that together. We'll be able to do that again with them as well. They have some money they're going to put in there, but we're going to have more money to balance that out. In addition to this, the Copper Corridor down that other side down there against Pinal County, you get down there around Hayden and Winkleman, the only thing that divides us, the counties, is the highway. Well, there's kids on the other side of that highway that need the job just as bad as our kids on our side. And so what we've done, seeing as this is OEO money, is that we said, okay, now we can go out there and maybe, I guess I'll say this, up front, solicit for some kids out of Kearney, Dudleyville, and things like that, that are looking for jobs. Because this is state money that's taken from the WIOA pot, so now we can legitimately say, hey, this whole area down here, we're interested in picking up some kids. That is going to mean a lot to those families down there. When we did our last year's program, the majority of the kids, the highest number of kids to apply was from Winkleman and Hayden. And we feel like it's gonna just go from there now. And so this will be a good opportunity to do that. Kathy's been working with Kearney and some other places down there. We're working with the Pinal County Supervisor, Supervisor Surdy, and his staff down there as well to try and get the agreements in place to work these kids. So no doubt we hit a lick on this one. It's a good thing, and what I'm most proud of is the fact that we can put that money to good use and work these kids and really maybe use it as a model to show like the WIOA programs, which is federal too, through the state, but show that, hey guys, you guys aren't going down the right path here. You need to change some things and get some participation. I was a chair on the WIOA program between Navajo, Apache, and Gila County. That was an issue to find those kids to work, and our hands were tied. We couldn't get them, so maybe this will help that a little bit too, and we'll go from there. I'd be willing to take any questions. Supervisor Humphrey.
I don't have any questions. It's just a great deal to plant a seed. Like you say, 8 years ago, we had a work session because they were only county was putting like 2 or 3 kids to work over the summer, and it's like, we got to do something. And we had a work session, and you and Kathy took it over and started growing it, and it's just great to see when you plant a seed and being able to turn it into what we did. We started it with constituent funds, what we could have maybe afford, and see what we could do with the kids, and Kathy put an awful lot of time into it, and so it's just great to see it turn into this, to where it starts growing, and then other people see it happening, and then they want to be part of it. And you know, we reach out to different cities, and then they have a little bit of money, and they want to put a youth together, and it's great because they're not sitting out there on the road crew with a pick and a shovel or things. If they're interested in IT, then we try to place them with IT or place them in their interest of what they want their careers to be. So I just, it's just a great thing, and to see plant a seed and watch it grow as this did, and some of the other projects. So hats off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, and thank you too for doing this. You and Kathy both put a lot of effort into this.
Yeah, it has been a huge undertaking. I mean, Kathy's got it down pat, so she's good right now, but Kathy's getting ready to retire, so be prepared, folks. Somebody else is gonna have to pick up that slack, because
It'll be a big hole.
I'm not gonna quit on this program. And so the one thing I will throw out there too is this isn't something new to the county. The county had this back when, Sherry, long time ago. Yeah, and there's quite a handful of folks in the county that had started in the program and to end up where they are now, and Sherry being one of them. And what was really, really cool, I thought about this when we started, was when Kathy and HR was working with these kids on the interviews to find out what their interests were and where they were headed out of school and whatnot. And we were placing people in the health department because they're interested in nursing or doctors, and putting them in the attorney's office because they want to go to law school. It worked out really, really well. And I don't know that we had, but maybe just 2 or 3 that actually fell out of the program. I think all of them, for the most part, made it through. So thank you all.
And thank you. And with that, I'll call for motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to ratify the Board of Supervisors' approval for the submittal of proposal to the Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity and approve grant agreement number OEO Quality Job 24-06 as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Item 2T, information, discussion, action to consider a sealed bid for the purchase of assessor's tax parcel number 205-05-003B, and if accepted, authorize the chairman's signature on a quit claim deed. Samantha.
Thank you, Chairman and board members. On June 25th, 1992, the Gila County Treasurer deeded parcel number 207-05-003B to the state of Arizona in care of the Board of Supervisors because the previous owner did not pay taxes on the subject property for 7 consecutive years. The lien amount for this property is $337.70. The clerk of the board's office has a process for selling properties that did not sell at the annual BOS auction of state deeded tax properties via sealed bid. Only an owner of land that adjoins a state deeded tax property may submit a sealed bid for the board's consideration. However, at the time they place the bid, they must show proof of adjoining ownership. The board may consider selling a property for less than a lien amount from then adjoining owner. The subject property adjoins Gila County Assessor's parcel number 207-05-003A, which is owned by Ms. Vanita Molina. Ms. Molina has submitted a sealed bid for the board's consideration. If the board accepts Ms. Molina's bid, she intends to request that the Gila County Assessor combines the parcels. Chairman, if I may open the sealed bid.
Please do.
I know. It's okay.
The cash.
That's interesting. It's a cash bid.
It is for the lien amount, $337.70.
Supervisor Humphrey.
If you're asking for comments, I love to see these homeless properties get a home. Somebody to take care of them, somebody to pay the taxes on them. I think it's a great thing, and I really, you see a lot of blighted properties around Gila County. So any of these properties that don't have a home, it's great for now they got a home and an owner. I think it's fantastic.
Supervisor Klein.
I'm there too. What was the amount?
It's $337.70.
$337.70.
Yes, sir. It's for the full lien amount.
Yeah, I'm good. If we can get them back on the tax rolls and get them going again, it's good.
Absolutely. Thank you, Samantha. With that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to sell assessor's tax parcel number 207-05-003B to Vanetta Molina in the amount of $337.70 and authorize the chairman's signature on the quitclaim deed.
Mr. Chair, I will second that.
Motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. We are to item 3, consent agenda items. It is items 3A through 3G. Supervisor Humphrey, would you like to remove any of the consent agenda items?
I don't care to discuss any of them as an individual item.
Okay, Supervisor Klein, do you?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so then I will call for a motion for consent agenda items A through G.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda items 3A through 3G.
And I will second that.
Motion to approve and second. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Item number 4 is call to the public. Do we have anyone here in Globe that wishes to speak at the call to the public? Cassandra, how about you? No. How about you? Lisa, Tyler, anybody?
No, sir.
No. Okay, thank you. We'll move on then. And we will offer Board of Supervisors and County Manager to brief report, brief summary. So we'll turn it over to Mr. Menlove.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I do have a few items that I wanted to present to you today. First of all is the Gila County Health and Benefits Fair. Ms. Sherry Grice is our wellness coordinator for the county, has been putting in a lot of effort to coordinate the Health and Benefits Fair, which will be held here in Globe on Monday, May 6th at the Gila County Fairgrounds from 10 to 3 p.m. and on Tuesday, May 7th at the TCM Complex building from 10 to 3 p.m. So May 6th here in Globe, May 7th in Payson. There will be a luncheon provided for our employees. There's questions of departments say the luncheon is from 11 to 2 each day. Departments, if they would, please work with their staff to enable employees to go to the health fair. It would very much be appreciated. There's a question asked, do we compensate for gas to drive out to the fairgrounds? No, we do not. And it is on their own time to go and participate in this. It's not it's their lunch time. And we do want to express appreciation to our employees for all that they do. As you've heard today and as you have expressed to those employees that we have really good employees with the county. The money that there's available through the state is not spent, and that money comes back to the state. And they're in the housing deal are saying we've got to have this money spent because it's federal money spent by June 30th. So they come to find an available way to spend that money through Gila County. That's the way it is through a lot of the programs that you've heard today, that you've been presented with and approved today, is that Gila County staff stepping up and taking these programs and these projects under their wings to give them to the constituents, to the people of Gila County. All of these grants and things takes a lot of effort, a lot of, Kathy, I'm looking at you, it takes a lot of time and effort to do all the reports, the coordinating. There are so many stipulations, federal laws, state laws, grant regulations, and stipulations that all have to be met and ensure that we are meeting and spending the money the way they're supposed to be spent. And staff steps up and takes care of those. So I, along with you, members of the board, want to express appreciation to them for all that they do in ensuring that we are getting the absolute most amount of money that we can to the citizens of Gila County. You as a board have been very progressive, that you have seen, caught a great vision of the things that can be done for the citizens of Gila County, and that you have encouraged all of this activity, and you have set the pathway, set the road that we can follow in order for all of this activity, all these programs that bless and assist people. You have set the example, you have given direction, you have given the resources. One thing that we're doing in the finance department is that we have taken a position that already existed and repurposed it so that now instead of just Amy Staten in the administering all the grants, because she has been spending all of her time administering grants and hasn't really had much time to go out and get new grants. So we have a second person in the finance department that will be working with Amy alongside her to help administer grants. We're also working to get others involved and assist with the grant administration, grant applications and administration of grants. So we are continuing to look for that. As we go forward, the money for all the COVID money is drying up and going away, and so, but there are still plenty of opportunities to get grant money from the federal government and from the state, so we need to continue to do that. One of those things that we have been working for is the Russell Road here in town that got washed away by the flooding from the Telegraph fire. Nearly half mile that's just washed the road away completely. And so Homer and his team, Mr. Vela and his team in Public Works has been looking for resources to find a money to plan or to do the engineering and design for repairing that road. Cost for just design and engineering is nearly $1 million. Mr. Vela and his staff have put together a grant, and I think have gotten, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, Homer, but have gotten maybe some tentative approval from the State Department of Transportation through the Transportation Board. And I know Mr. Vela is planning to attend the Transportation Board in Buckeye on Friday to, again, convey our interest and our appreciation to the Transportation Board for nearly $1 million to design and engineer repairs of Russell Road for access to the great recreation area that we have here south of Globe in the Pinal Mountains. I do also want to make you aware and express appreciation to you and our county sheriff. Recently, or been an ongoing long-term lawsuit from Greenlee County that the sheriff in Greenlee County has, through kind of a nominal state statute, expected that they could have any resources that the sheriff deemed necessary. This lawsuit in this case has gone on for a number of months and years. And the courts recently made a determination that you, as a Board of Supervisors, do have control over the finances of the county. And that's what we've always discussed and always stated, that the Board of Supervisors allocates resources based on priorities that you, as a Board of Supervisors, determine. Again, back to as progressive as you are in investing in our employees and the different things you have, we have been moving forward tremendously. I express appreciation to Sheriff Shepard. He has, I think, been the model of sheriffs in Arizona, that he has, he's progressive. He continues to work for ways that he can enforce the laws and enforce safety and security for all the residents of Gila County, and has done a tremendous job with that, but recognizes that it's a big picture and works with the board and has been willing to work with management and the Board of Supervisors to ensure that we're getting the maximum resources for the Sheriff's Office and doing it in a way that's fiscally responsible. So thank you, Sheriff. I really appreciate all that you do in supporting Gila County. And finally, wanted to give you an update on the state of Arizona to the budget that the state of Arizona had recently. The Finance Advisory Committee had their quarterly meeting just last week, and it gives us status because as a county finance person, lived through the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, and know how easily it is for the state to balance their books, balance their budget on the backs of counties and municipalities. The state would go and state how they proudly balance their budgets while cutting revenues of counties and also adding expenses or putting more expenses on the counties. So with the state budget and the deficits that they're facing, the latest numbers show that there is a $1.8 billion deficit over the next 2 years. It's hard to say what the state will do. One of the things that I know that is addressed this is with our probation officers, that the probation officers, the state is not willing to fully fund. State probation, or probation officers have a real unusual funding. About half of the Gila County probation officers are funded by the state, half of them are funded by the counties. And the state, as of this point, has not included funding, full funding for our the county probation officers. And so it's really difficult. We recently heard from a state legislator that it's more important for the state, at least one state legislator, to fund their special interests than it is to fund their obligations to counties. And I'll leave it at that, the state needs to recognize counties for who we are, the services we provide, and that they fully fund the services that the county provides that are the state's responsibility. I'll stop there before I get further up on my soapbox and want to go, but the state budget, $1.8 $8 billion deficit. That is down. It was $2.2 billion at their last meeting in January. And so revenues have improved slightly. The whole deal of doing the flat tax for personal income tax is stabilizing somewhat. The refunds that people are getting from their individual taxes are less, so it is starting to stabilize on that income tax, personal income tax refunds from the 2.5% flat tax. So things are stabilizing there, but again, still there's a tremendous deficit that the state is going to deal with. They're going to work on the state budget in earnest here over the next few weeks. And we will continue through county efforts and County Supervisors Association, Arizona Association of Counties, to emphasize that the counties are facing some of the same fiscal challenges that the state are, and hopefully keep ourselves whole to the greatest extent possible. That's my report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, a lot of concern there. Supervisor Humphrey.
Held a Roosevelt community meeting on the 8th at 1 o'clock, and after that I was on KQSS radio at 5:30 p.m. And after that I attended a Miami Town Council meeting on later that evening at 6. And so anyway, then on Saturday I went to attend a candidate forum in Payson, and it was interesting. There were 4 people speak, and all 4 speakers were running against incumbents, and so that was a different deal. I wasn't speaking. We'll hold a Southern Gila County preseason fire meeting on the 18th, and so that's great. Started that again when I was elected to have a fire meeting down here. I know you had one up north, and Tommy started that, but I remember the first fire season meeting that we had, we kind of got together and we didn't talk about evacuations or things of that nature. We were just trying to get all the chiefs and everybody on the same page, and it's grown into a great meeting where we get a lot accomplished. 4 services there kind of let us know the areas that are going to be difficult if they do catch fire, and the ones that are going to be less aggressive fires if they catch. DPS for road closures, the water storage, evacuations now, the ready, set, go. There's just been a lot of things develop over the years, and with our past fires and creating floods and stuff, emergency services, thank them all very much, because they've all built a fantastic resume if they would care to go anywhere else. So appreciate their input, because as far as the state goes, I don't think they've had as many evacuations as Gila County has over the last several years. So it's turned into a great meeting and a lot accomplished, and to help people be a lot safer and move better in these conditions. So I want to thank staff and all the people that attend to this to just keep making us better for emergencies. And so that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Klein.
Okay, so I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your fire meeting, but I was a little bit preoccupied, so. The fire meetings are always good. I guess the highlight of our last few days has been HB 1829. That's the bill that's coming out of the House that will convey the property, the vet center, to the county. And that passed out of the House last week, and it's on its way to the Senate. The Senate hopefully will be addressing that soon, and then hopefully that'll be wrapping it up. So we're really, really close. And Congressman Crane called me and let me know about that, and so I'm hoping that they're all staying on top of it, and we'll see that it gets over the finish line. Here this last week, there at the vet center, there's been a group of about 20 plus people, about 26, I think, counting staff, and it was a treatment set up for for veterans in there, and they had their own chefs and everything else like that. Went really, really well as far as I know. I heard really good things about the site and whatnot, so they're gone now. They left Monday, I believe it was. And then, like I said earlier, on the summer work, we've been working with Pinal County agencies on our youth program. We're going to continue to do that, and that should be good to go here pretty quick. And then this week, I'll be at the Small County CSA executive meeting. I'm in running for the WIR board position, and that is the voting position on WIR for Arizona. And so hopefully, I'm hoping I can get in there on that and carry that on. Richard Lunt's been the member on it up to now. Tommy Martin was before Richard, and they've done an exceptional job. Hopefully I could do half as good as they have. And so I'm looking forward to that. And then on the 24th, April 24th, I've been invited to the Western Governors Conference in Phoenix. And what they've done is they've put together a panel there that I believe there's like 6 of us that will spend a little over an hour question and answering session on how we could go about reducing or helping smoke issues in these big cities and outlying areas in the event of wildfires. And so that's going to be a real interesting topic. I'm really looking forward to addressing that and being a part of that. I think that'll be really good. And with that, Mr. Chair, that's all I had.
Thank you, Supervisor. Yes, you were missed at the preseason fire meeting. It's an annual event. It went really well, very well attended. It's not really about, it's not centered around the Board of Supervisors. We just host it, we accommodate it, and it's just amazing the amount of collaboration that occurs at a meeting like that. And I've really got a shout out to our own staff. When you start talking about fire seasons, you don't really think about Gila County that much, but we have our sheriff's posse, we have the sheriff's department involved, we have our public works department involved, we have our emergency management involved, as well as others. And we have just recently, through Carl's help, established a building up in Pine to become a new designated emergency center. And I will be using constituent funds to make that better and more endearing, maybe a generator or something like that. So we are growing, we are planning the whole bladder replacement system, all of that. Integral part of the fire safety concerns. What we heard from the Forest Service was that we're going to have an average or normal, whatever that means, season, okay? Not abnormally hot and windy or dry or abnormally wet, just average with an average monsoon. So I think, as we all know, it's danger every year. So we just watch for that. And so then yesterday I was on KMOG, my normal once a month, and it went really well, always good there. And so that's really all I'm going to report on. So unless there's any more from the other supervisors, what I would like to do is just take a break right now. Let's reconvene at 12 noon, and start our work session. Okay? Stretch our legs. Thank you. Mr. Menlove. Give him a couple minutes.
Put whiskey in that Coke, perfect.
How about sharing? Let's share a little. Okay, everybody, let's reconvene now. And so this part of the meeting is a work session, which means it's a lot more relaxed. We get to talk about stuff. Let me read it here. It's item number 6, information and discussion. No action regarding Arizona Public Service Company's 2024 wildfire mitigation efforts, including the addition of a new public safety power shutdown plan. And Carl, go ahead and start things off. I know we have a lot of people here this afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. So I brought some folks from APS here today to talk to you about the public safety power shutoff program. I won't take any of their time away from them. I'll introduce Janet Dean from APS, who's brought a team of experts here to fully discuss this program with you.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Janet Dean, for being here. You did a presentation at our pre-fire season meeting, and so please go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chairman, Supervisors. It's a real honor to be here and to talk to you about something that we take very seriously, which is the safety of all of our communities. We've talked to you in the past and over the last several years about our very extensive wildfire mitigation program. So we're here to do that again, give you a 2024 update. And as Carl mentioned, we do want to dive deeper into a new tool that we have in our toolbox designed to keep communities safe. I'm going to introduce our team. We're going to kind of tag team it as we talk through it. But before we get started, I do want to kind of jump on the theme of this meeting, which was the wonderful employees you have in the county, and give a special shout out to Carl and Justin and the work they do in emergency management, because they have been key partners with us as we have talked through and began to develop our plan on public safety power shutdowns. The county is going to be a key partner. We're going to be working side by side, hip to hip with Carl and his team if we ever do have to enact one of these. So
thank you for that.
Yeah. So to start, what I'd like to do is make the introductions of those of us who are going to be presenting, and then also take the opportunity to introduce you to some other team members who are here. Again, I'm Janet Dean, Public Affairs Manager, and our manager of our fire mitigation program, Wade Ward, is going to be speaking first. And then Frank Sanderson, who is the director of our statewide transmission and distribution delivery, is going to be speaking. And then also in the audience, we've got Joe Weathersby, who I think most of you know. He is our Northeast Division Manager, which means he has responsibilities for Northern Gila County. We also have today Brian Goslin, who is our Southeast Division Manager, who he's got responsibilities for Southern Gila County. And then we also have a member of our statewide administrative team that works with Frank, Katie Wells. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wade to kick us off. Oh, first, our objectives today. I think I've covered them. We're going to talk about what we do to reduce and mitigate wildfire risk. We are going to share our new tool, Public Safety Power Shutoffs, and then we're going to share with you what we're asking community members and residents to do to help us prepare for this fire season.
Thank you, Janet.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Supervisors. Thank you very much for having us here today. Click to the next slide. And I hope it will be as interactive as possible, so please ask questions, clarify. We have a lot of information to cover, but we'll try to hit it at a high level, and then you all ask us questions based on what you think we're missing. So certainly want to express to you the appreciation again for being here today and presenting our program, because
although we're here to talk a little bit about PSPS, public safety power shutdowns, that is just one of the tools that we have in our toolbox, and we hope it's a tool that we have to use very sparingly. But we do realize with the changing conditions, and both weather, climate, and our infrastructure, that it is important to have that tool in our toolbox, and that we'll use it responsibly. But to begin with, our vegetation management program really is the crux of our fire mitigation program. It all starts with clearing our right-of-ways the best that we possibly can to make sure that we don't have any grow into those utility right-of-ways, as well as potential for fall-in, which I'll talk a little bit more later when we talk about our partnership with our publicly managed lands. But we're allowed to do things outside of our right-of-way because of those relationships, and some of those relationships that Supervisor Klein and I even talked about at the beginning of this meeting, and attempting to widen some of those right-of-ways where we can, or at least thin them. Our enhanced inspection programs, continuing our maintenance inspections. We do not only our annual inspections or our on-cycle inspections, so in other words, sometimes those inspections are 2, 3, 5 years, depending on what needs to be done in inspecting the equipment, but also the vegetation inspections. And then we have inspections on top of inspections. So we are doing hazard tree inspections as well as our defensible space around poles, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So we're clearing 10 feet in all directions of those poles, including vertically, to protect those poles for an oncoming wildfire. Because if we can keep the poles and wire up in the air, it's a whole lot safer for our first responders to go in and for our communities to get out. Improved monitoring systems. So we have invested in a program called WFA, Wildfire Analyst, that allows us to do situational awareness, as well as when a wildfire does start, we can project what the forward progress of that fire is going to look like, anywhere from 1 hour to 24 hours to 48 hours out. It's a pretty impressive tool. It has a lot of horsepower. We haven't even fully got the reins around it yet in terms of understanding what we can do with it in terms of situational awareness, as well as helping our partners, but certainly is something that we'll be doing in the future. Grid hardening, I'll just mention a couple of them, but making sure that our systems are coordinated and that we can isolate and lower the impact to our customers as much as possible when we do have outages. So creating isolation points is very important to creating a better customer experience and keeping the lights on both for our customers as well as our first responders. Because as you know, a lot of radio communications, water pumps, things like that are all a part of that system. So we're trying to make sure that we have those isolation points in place so we can minimize the impact. And then the risk modeling, which is a part of an improved monitoring. So we can long-term forecast. So simply put, if we have money to spend in a particular area, when Joe and Brian are looking at where to spend money, we look at that fire modeling to say, okay, this is the highest impact area within your service territory. Here's the best place to spend that money. So we look back at all of those things: vegetation management, inspections, monitoring, grid hardening. These are some of the best places to spend that money.
So,
Questions
Mr. Chair, if
before I
I
move
might, Wade, if I could ask you a question. When it comes to the modeling part, are you looking on that? Are you looking at veg types? Are you looking at population, or what are you doing? Or fire currents from the from the past? How are you going to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's all of the above. That's the exciting part. We've had multiple tools that do certain things at a certain level. Now we have, not that it's going to replace everything that we're already currently doing, but it will enhance it and be able to look at all of those things together.
Okay, thanks.
So I talked a little bit about veg maintenance, but certainly the hazard tree program. Just the one thing that I'll mention here is really we do our routine maintenance within all the right-of-ways, and then we look outside of the right-of-ways. So there are more hazard trees, unfortunately. One of the beauties I'm sure that everybody recognizes is that we have the largest contiguous stand of ponderosa pine in the world that goes from Young all the way up to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And that is a fire-dependent ecosystem. But because we all live here, we've removed that fire component that really makes for a healthy forest. I'm not blaming anybody for that. I'm just saying I live there too. It's a reality that we have to recognize and do what we can. So what we're doing at EPS is making sure that those right-of-ways are clear, and then everything outside of that right-of-way, that we're working with our publicly managed lands, with our county, with our state, to make sure that we remove as much as we can and thin as much as we can. All right, enhanced inspections, conducting line patrols, as I said, deploying drones, using LiDAR, much different than the sheriff's LiDAR, but kind of the same concept. We use all of these tools to make sure that our inspections, as you see, they're doing an inspection on a tower, all the way down to our vegetation maintenance as well. And then improved monitoring. So we're using weather stations and leveraging our cameras to quickly monitor fires, I would say, versus detect. We're not in the detection business. None of these cameras are monitored 24/7. But when we do get a fire reported to our WFA model, that comes directly from Irwin system, which is the CAD dispatch for all the fire services across the state. Then we can go and look and see what the potential impact to our line is. So all of these weather stations and cameras are sitting on our assets. And the reason for that is we want to make the best data-driven decisions as we possibly can about reclosing, about the potential shutdown because of wildfire, about communicating to our first responders and to our communities about the potential for that to come. We are not, I want to make sure clear for the county as for the sheriff as well, we're not in the business of notifying customers of a wildfire. This is strictly for our purposes. But certainly any information that we do have through this, we will leverage that with the county and emergency management.
So Wade, so basically you're gonna have cameras set up on your lines in strategic places.
Yes.
That's what you're gonna have. And so those cameras will be accessible by you guys, right?
Correct.
And so how is the coordination between you guys and the Forest Service with their detection methods?
Very good.
Okay.
We're integrated seamlessly with them, even more so now with WFA and the Irwin system.
Because I know that in some lookouts now they have the cameras on the lookouts.
Yep.
Rather than people there.
Yeah, and the difference, sorry, I didn't want
No,
to
you're
jump
good.
in. The difference for us is we're not, in a lot of cases, their cameras are sitting up very high on a lookout position and they're looking at top smoke, as we call it. What we're trying to do is look straight down our circuit and understand what the risk is potentially right there. Now, they can look out, but we have some blind spots that they don't have, and we've got some blind spots, or cover some of those blind spots that they don't have. So certainly they're aware that we have them, and we're aware of the need, and we'll share back and forth as necessary. Grid hardening, I talked a little bit about this. I guess probably one of the biggest things that I would mention outside of what you can read on the slide is we have a lot of people have seen this, especially if you're driving from Payson to Pine. You see a lot of funny looking poles that have it's like chicken wire on them. It's fire mesh. And the first time that we ever deployed it was on the Telegraph Fire here. We did a test right at Pinto Creek, I believe it was. Brian, is that correct? Yeah. Where the fire was oncoming. We had just received this material. We hadn't even tested it yet. We had the ability to put it on a bunch of poles that were coming from the top of the Pinto Creek all the way down to the first community. Yeah, Shoal Trans. And it was very successful. Simply put, this literally is basically like chicken wire. It either comes in a wire mesh or a fiberglass mesh. And the easiest way to explain it is it's got a material on it that's coated, and when heat, a very low temperature, about 200 degrees, hits it, it burns up like the little snakes that you used to light on 4th of July, and it swells up. It excludes oxygen, and therefore the pole doesn't burn. So we're deploying that on a lot of really high-risk areas. We have a replacement program, and we're looking at even accelerating that further to some new construction projects. The modeling, again, as you can see, it's a little whitewashed with the lights, but when a fire goes into Irwin, that Irwin system automatically populates into our WFA model. It has an overlay of our system in our community, and it allows us to look at what is the worst case scenario. So this model runs based on no suppression activity. So again, it communicates to us what the worst case scenario is, and allows us to forecast out 1 hour, 24 hours, 48 hours. The model actually produces movement based on 3-hour intervals, and that is combined with a lot of information that comes from DOE, as well as historical information that we've put into the model from APS and from state historical fires. Talked about our partnership, again, very strong with all of these folks. Work very closely with emergency managers as well as the boots on the ground, as I'll say. So our fire mitigation specialists are tied in with those fire resources that are deployed to these fires, integrate seamlessly. They know what the risk is. Our number one objective is to make sure that it's safe for the firefighters to go in and make sure that it's safe for the community to get out in the event of an evacuation. So, along with all the other tools that we have at our hand, like non-reclose strategy, vegetation maintenance, system hardening, all those things that we've talked about, we recognize and understand that the conditions are continuing to get worse, not better. Our wind and dry conditions, especially the wind event, are much shorter than some other states that have used PSPS as a tool. It's just not the way the wind blows here. It does blow hard and it blows strong, but not for as long as some other states and some other utilities that had to use PSPS. We have taken a lot of time and a lot of energy to make sure that we get this as right as we possibly can when an event happens. So we've been spending the last year and a half, particularly about the last 9 months, looking very closely with the WFA model and the 200 worst weather days in Arizona, and correlating that with our circuits, I should say, and then looking at the highest risk circuits that we have, and then what are the worst. So in terms of impact from high winds and dry conditions. Those are the two main drivers. The other important thing to remember with PSPS, this is a forecastable event. So this isn't, although our meteorologists, we have 2 meteorologists and a fire scientist looking at this 24/7, 365, doing ongoing forecasts, and one of these events shows up on the radar 5 to 7 days out, and we start to look at it and we reevaluate every day up to the event. So we looked at those 200 worst weather days and tried to figure out exactly how many times it could have happened in the past, and at least attempt to, forecast how many times it could happen in the future. So that's difficult to do with weather, as you know. It's extremely dynamic, but we feel pretty comfortable with the numbers that are on here, that our outages, including our inspections after the outage takes place, that approximately 20 hours. I know everybody wants a number, wants to hang their hat on a number. I just caution you that weather is super dynamic, and we're going to make the right decision based on that current forecast and the current observations that we're taking in that time. So going back to those cameras and weather stations, it's not based on something that's happening 10 miles away or even 5 miles away. We even felt that 1 mile away was not acceptable to make a solid data-driven decision. So that's why we're putting those weather stations on those 13 circuits.
So your weather stations, are they gonna be correlated with your cameras, like the same place? Or they gonna be strung out more, or how?
They're in proximity. So on those 13 feeders that we have for PSPS, we'll have a minimum of 2 weather stations and a camera.
So one thing the government always went by, and they still do today, is the Haynes Index.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it isn't just high winds or dry conditions or extreme heat. I mean,
Yeah.
June, we have all that anyway. But it's humidity and everything else involved. And so, is that kind of the same basis you're gonna use? Is that, or how are you gonna?
It is included in it. So I didn't want to get too deep, but if as these people know behind me, I can talk about this forever. So be careful what you ask, because I'm happy to entertain anything. But very high level, we use FPI, which comes out of the Wildfire Analyst. So FPI is Fire Potential Index. The Fire Potential Index includes Haynes. It also includes 8 different things. We take that into consideration. We have an FPI score. Then we also take 2 other components, our meteorologists, I should say, and look at those 2, and that is the burn index and wind speed. So, excuse me, wind gusts. So those 2 are then calculated with FPI, and then there's a third one, and that is peak. So the wind peak really tells the story about the wind gusts. So if you have wind gusts that are sustained at 25, 35 miles an hour, but you have forecasted peak of 66 miles an hour, you've got to get somewhere between the 2, right? And that takes time. And that is where we are starting to calculate the extreme conditions. So wind blows here all the time, but it blows pretty strong. And it's no good for fire, as we all know. It increases the growth rate exponentially. But what we're looking at is those extreme conditions where the potential for our wires to come down is where we're enacting this.
So a lot of those predictions, Wade, are like for an area, a big area, like across the face of the rim, or you know, your desert areas or whatever. They'll hit those indices, and they'll be pretty high there. Are you going to go by that as a area as a whole, or are you going to narrow it down to more specific parts of your line, or how are you going to do that?
That's a great question, and that is specifically why we're putting these weather stations on our circuits, so that we don't have to rely on that. There are times the National Weather Service will issue a red flag. There are also times the National Weather Service will not issue a red flag that impacts our area. We have operational procedures in place when we do have red flag. We know that we have red flag in a certain area, and the National Service has not issued it. We put our operational procedures in place regardless of what they issue or don't issue. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that, to your point, it's a very generalized, big geographic area. So we're trying to get as specific as possible. To give you an example, you've got 2 feeders that are on the PSPS, that is Tono 14 and Preacher, excuse me. I got so many feeders in my head I can't remember sometimes. So Preacher Canyon, which runs all the way along 260 down to Young, all the way up to Forest Lakes. It's a big area. Is there a potential for one to be on at PSPS and not the other? The answer to your question is yes.
Gotcha. Well, you know, that's going to be a hard balance for you guys when you really get to diving into that part of it. I mean, I don't know how.
It's extremely hard, but we understand that the consequences of not making a decision to do this is far greater. We have much more risk for all of us of not doing a PSPS. And it's really similar to our non-reclose strategy. So when we have a circuit that trips and goes offline, we don't re-energize that in those same conditions until we do a patrol. The difference is this is proactive. So we know extreme weather conditions are coming, the potential for the feeder to trip and a wire to come down, is too great for us to take that risk. Not from an APS perspective, and I can tell you this from this is me talking. This is not this. We understand that risk. And the risk outweighs the benefit. So having to take a few hundred or a few thousand customers out of service in extreme conditions versus leaving it on and having something happen is far greater. Again, it's a tool that we hope we don't have to use a whole lot. We looked at the past 5 years and determined that in those circumstances, in those 200 worst weather days where those conditions are met, it only happened a few times over 5 years.
So I can see from a liability standpoint, APS could be very vulnerable if they knew that one of their lines was very likely to fall down and start a fire, burn down just one house, versus say, we're gonna do something that will be inconvenient for approximately 20 hours, but it's because we have you in mind. I can see where in extreme conditions, you're not gonna be doing this every time the wind is blowing. But in extreme conditions, I think it'd be totally wise to say, let's turn it off because something's going to happen, likely.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate the comments. I think it's important to understand too, though, that we have gone to great extents to figure out, even down to patrol times, how long it'll take. Is this on foot? Is this by truck? Is this by helicopter? Everything. So the ability to shorten those outages as much as possible, like I said from the beginning, doing isolation points. As we get better at this, I think we can also cut down on those times in the future. So it's where we're starting, at 13 feeders on it. These are the estimations that we're making, but certainly we'll get better at it, the community will get better at it, and hopefully we won't have to use it, but we want to be ready and use it if we have to. All right, I'll turn it over to Frank. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. Really appreciate being here today. As we begin our communication and brainstorming over how this would go, I want you to know that your emergency management team was there at the table, and they have been, excellent partners. And that's what we want to be, is a partner in this. As you look at the map here, as Wade mentioned, there's 13 feeders, 13 circuits across northern Arizona that were targeted for this, and it was a hard decision. I know Wade and team spent a lot of time looking at different areas. There are areas where we don't have to take out the full circuit, and just to add a little bit to Wade's comments in the inspections from a forestry perspective, and then also from a lineman and troubleman perspective. Those are the resources that we utilize to patrol the lines constantly every year, starting in January in preparation for this. We have 237 what we call fire mitigation feeders and 13 PSPS feeders. So we're doing extra inspections on these to make sure that our equipment is hardened, that we get the right work done, so that even with adverse conditions, our infrastructure will hold up. And then in these scenarios, that I'm sure the ones that you're most focused on are those that fall within Gila County. And so, as Wade mentioned, Tonto 14 and Preacher Canyon 6. I think we're very familiar with these areas, and I'm sure, as Janet will note out, we want to understand, in a scenario that we have to do this, where are our routes? How are we communicating through our incident command structures? How do we liaison with the county as you guys conduct your operations during a scenario like this? And how we're communicating. Specifically, my team is tasked with how do we take the power out? effectively, and how do we get it back on as quickly as possible once that window of extreme fire danger is gone. And so each of my teams, this one having to do with our PACEN, what we call DOC, under the leadership of Joe Weathersby, has looked at each of these areas. These troublemen and linemen know, this terrain very well. They know our equipment very well. And knowing that this can't take hours to patrol. So they sat down, and in some cases there's, between helicopter, on trucks, side-by-sides, drones, we've gotten these expansive areas that we can patrol them within 2 hours. It's pretty impressive, and I guarantee if you were to ask these guys that roam this country frequently, they would have never thought you could do it that fast, because it would seem like it takes 6 or 8 hours, but they've really done a good job putting together a plan. And then along with that plan, in a scenario like this, knowing that our resources are going to be out on the roads, they're going to be in some of these areas, that we're communicating and in lockstep with any type of operations the county's doing, and making sure that you know where we're at and we know where you're at. That way we're not getting in each other's way. So I wanted to kind of present this section, and then the other section of line, as was stated, is the Preacher 6 area. And so, as you know, also there, the terrain is pretty treacherous, getting in and out of these areas. With the utilization of helicopters and things like that, it really, lowers the amount of time it's going to take us to patrol these and get these on in an efficient manner. One thing I do want to bring up, just so you have awareness to it, is that we're turning these off, so if a wire falls, it won't start a fire. There may be a scenario where we do find a pole down or wire down, things like that. We will have crews, material, everything on the standby while these patrols are taking place simultaneously. But what I also want to make sure that's understood is that may delay, in some circumstances, the power coming back on. The good thing is the sectionalizing devices we have on these lines is that if, let's say it's further on down the line, we can sectionalize it there, get this section of customers back on, and then these customers, hey, we got to wait till we get this pole back up, the wire in the air and things like that. But we will be communicating with you the whole time as far as that goes. Other than that, I want to just make sure that you guys know that we're here to partner. If there's something you're concerned with, I know when we had the meeting with the emergency managers, we personally have, or our APS has a list of medically monitored customers. We have an idea where, some of our more vulnerable customers are, and I'm sure, through emergency management, you guys have line of sight to different areas, and making sure that we're talking what's needed, and just make sure we can work together as closely as possible.
So, Frank, I got a question for you. When you look at all these lines, this one and the one before, how many miles is that on lines?
So I couldn't tell you on Tonto, but I know Preacher 6 is 138 miles long.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's 138 miles long, so a lot of territory to cover.
Gotcha.
In very interesting terrain, beautiful terrain, but interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So this, between these lines, I think, Janet, you had told me once before that if something was to happen, it could effectively hit like 6,000 people or so?
Yeah, so with if you were to take the number of customers, and this might not be exactly what you're talking about, but if you were to take the total number of customers on those 13 circuits, it's right around 13,000 customers. Yep. So even if all of them were out at the same time.
Yeah, that's all 13. I think the number I gave you, I added together the customer numbers on these two lines.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. So let me ask you this, while you're both there, is from APS standpoint, to have power out in the wintertime is one thing, have power out in the summertime is another. And so is there gonna be any programs or anything like that out there from your guys' standpoint that people could apply to help fix things that may not come back up, ice boxes, air conditioning units, things like that? I mean, do you see what I'm saying, or what I'm asking? I mean, to me, it's like, there's a little bit of a difference to me, because in the wintertime, it's usually a tree falls across the lines because it's weighted down with snow and the wind blows in there. But here, you're physically looking at, we're gonna flip this switch because of this. And so, there's gonna be some issues with people's personal household appliances, things like that. Are you guys thinking anything like this, or?
I haven't heard discussions along the type of program you're outlining right now, Woody, but Supervisor Klein, but one of the things that, as Wade mentioned, these are predictable. These are going to be predictable. So I'm going to go to the next slide.
I'll let her go on.
Yeah. and help if I need it. These are going to be predictable. So we are going to start talking to our customers several days in advance. So, 4 to 5 days before, we're going to have a sense that there's a possibility that we're going to have weather conditions that will mean we'll need to call a public safety power shutdown. So our first point of contact is going to be with our emergency management partners. And then we're going to start talking to our customers. And they're going to be getting daily communication from us saying, we think this is coming. The weather is, the weather's shaping up that way. Be prepared. Everything we're going to do is push preparedness. And I think what we can do maybe to mitigate what you're asking about, Woody, is make sure that we're including in that messaging, unplug, if we have to call one of these, unplug your electronics, unplug your, whatever you need to unplug to protect it. And I think that's probably how we would approach that. But as I said, every day leading up to one of these, we're going to be talking to our customers. And we're going to be sending text messages. We'll be doing email. We'll be doing some phone calls to our very vulnerable customers, making sure that they're prepared if they've got to get more oxygen on hand, whatever it might be. With that, and then during the outage, we'll be communicating. And it could come that, 2 days out, 1 day out, we say weather conditions have changed. We're calling off that warning. One of the things that we are doing and focused on right now, and I think it's something that your emergency managers are constantly focused on, is we're only as good at communicating if we have contact information. So we are really pushing for people to sign up, make sure they go in and sign up so we have good contact information for them. We're also actually trying to, as we're messaging that, we're also messaging, make sure you sign up for your county alert system, and we're giving email and website, we're giving information to drive them to your site so that they'll sign up for your alert system. So that's a big focus of ours right now. So
There was once upon a time, Janet, when you'd have, I grew up in Young, so I'm really used to power outages. I mean, it wouldn't be for 20 hours, it'd be for a week or so at a time, normally always in the wintertime. People aren't accustomed to that these days. And power goes, when you guys are testing your generator and the power's flickering on and off,
yeah,
people get real excited, and I just see that being a kind of a big issue. I mean, even though we try to put it out there, you try to warn them, you try to prepare them for it, I don't know that a lot of people really understand that. And then we have the older people that are on some kind of medical equipment, so that isn't going to work. On top of that, in the summertime, like we're talking the month of June, a lot of it is the best chance. It's 105 degrees in Young. And so there's some really big concerns. And I don't know how, we try our best to help prepare people however we can, but there's going to be some real big concerns for some of these people.
Yeah, I'd just add, so in the research that we did, our biggest wind events that happened over those 200 worst days were actually sandwiched in between those heat waves that we have. So typically it's April to the end of May, and then you have the monsoons come on, and then you have another windy event that happens after the monsoons.
Yeah, but wind isn't your only factor.
Correct. Yep, wind is not the only factor, but and that's also why we're forecasting that we'll be able to use this tool very limitedly.
Mhm.
So then when the heat is combined with that, it shrinks that window down even more. So I think the biggest takeaway, the most important thing is for all of us to be prepared. And that's why we're taking all the time to make sure that we communicate this out, that we're being proactive about it, getting out as much as we possibly can to make sure people are aware so that those vulnerable folks, vulnerable customers of ours, understand that this is coming. And I know what you're saying. We understand it too. No matter how many times you try, text, email, mail, bill inserts, whatever you possibly can, commercials, us being here today, whatever we possibly can, you're never going to reach everybody or get them to click, right? But we're trying to make sure that we get as much as we possibly can so that they're prepared. That's why the number one customer that we spoke to first is the emergency managers, because they're better at this than we are. That this is their job. Not that we're pawning it off, don't get me wrong, but we're trying to partner and make sure that they understand that what we're doing is going to have an impact. We understand that there's always going to be an impact to taking away power.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first thing that I think of too, as soon as the power goes off. How long is it be off? Because my daughter's a manager at Costco. Whenever the power goes off in Prescott, the first phone call that she makes is to me. I tell her to call the outage hotline. I don't know, but we'll try to minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah, it's just the folks just aren't used to that.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
lights go out and panic hits.
Yep.
Well, and we've seen that, especially as we've had new people move to more rural areas where they were used to, you know, living in the city, and the power could be rerouted quickly, and their power was out for a very minimal amount of time. So we are cognizant of that. As Wade mentioned, the first folks we talked to were our emergency managers in the 3 counties. We also have been working really closely with the Red Cross, because we know that there are some areas in Gila County, through conversations with Carl and others, that there are areas where the Red Cross doesn't have volunteers, doesn't have an identified location. And so we're trying to support and perhaps even expand some of the efforts that Carl and his team have been having. We've talked with the Red Cross about how do we get a lot of APS employees and retirees who live throughout these 3 counties trained as Red Cross volunteers, so that perhaps we can have more response if there is a situation like a public safety power shutoff or any other kind of emergency. So we're really focused. We don't have all the answers, but we've put a lot of time and effort and thought into this, and we're looking for feedback and what Carl thinks, what challenges he's going to have, what you see, so that we can continue to refine this program and do everything we can to support the communities.
You know, that's a hard one, Janet, and you guys can shut me up anytime you want, but that's a hard one because we all don't really know. This is going to be like a work in progress. You know, we're going to dive into it up over our eyebrows and then swim our way out of it. So when I think about it, I just think about the difference in people in a lot of these rural areas. It's like, yeah, it's going to be tough.
It is going to be tough, but we also know that some of these communities are very resilient and do take personal preparedness very seriously. So we want to capitalize that and expand on that and do what we can to support that.
Janet, I had asked Kathy to pick this up, and I wanted to give it to you. It's coming up really quick, but it might be something that you guys are interested in, because I'm pretty sure there'll be a big amount of people there.
Oh, okay. I had not heard about this. So, Yeah, let us look and see what we can do, because this is the kind of event, that was one of the things I was gonna offer, and that I've offered at Supervisor Christensen's, preparedness, fire preparedness meeting, is if there are community events that we can come to, especially in a PSPS affected area, we want to try to be there if we can. So
I don't know how we can do it, because in a lot of ways, unless we're sitting here in a work session, none of us three can talk. But if there's some way we're working with the manager and our executive
Oh, yeah.
assistants to organize something for a lot of these areas that we could go into with Carl and Justin and you folks as well, and have these discussions with the neighborhoods,
Yeah.
I for one would be all for it.
if you've got community meetings, if you've other meetings we can take advantage of, if, you know, we'll be there. And this actually, I'll talk to the team, but this might be something that I can be down there this weekend to talk about.
It might be a start.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, Janet, yesterday, 112 years ago, yesterday was the sinking of the Titanic. Okay, and they were not prepared for that. So they didn't have enough life rafts for one thing, or boats, and then they underutilized them. So 1,500 people died. And so I look at this as it's a tool in your box. It's the life raft on the boat. We never want to use it, but it's there just in case we need it. And it's going to be uncomfortable for some people, and we need to prepare. And that's why I'm working with Carl for a station in Pine where people can go and be air conditioned or comfortable if need be. So I completely agree that you should have more tools in your toolbox, but use them sparingly unless you need to. So.
Well, and I think as Wade said, the way I've described it is we're being as surgical as we can. We are not, our PSPS program is not the same PSPS program that you've heard about in other states. We're developing this program to work for our state, our communities, our infrastructure. So we appreciate that.
Okay.
Other thoughts, questions?
Well, to start with, I appreciate you guys, you know, being here today and coming to us, and we have the ability to be a partner with you on trying to help out with this. That's really good. As a supervisor, I think my main goal going forward, like I've talked with you guys about before too, is to work you out of this situation. We go in there and we start securing these lines, even if it's a line here, a line there, but at least it's a start, something to start with. And I think working with the local Forest Service and Diffham State, I'm hoping that that'll be a real big opportunity to get some things done, to where maybe in the not too far off future, this will be something we're not that concerned about. So, and I think that's a real concern from a county standpoint, as far as I am concerned. When we're talking, you know, around 13,000 people, that's a pretty good wad of folks. And so, James?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I could ask a question, you might have stated this already. If its response has been stated, then I apologize. But very rare circumstance, I think you explained at the beginning. Do you know how many, like over the last 3 years, how often this would have happened, that this turning off the switch would have happened in Gila County to, like, the Control Road corridor, the Young corridor, in the different areas?
So Wade talked about a historical look back, and that historical look back was over 5 years. And in that 5 years, we would have had conditions that would have warranted a PSPS event 4 different times. Wade, do you know, were they across all 13 feeders, or do you have any more drill down onto Gila County?
I don't have a drill down into Gila County, but she's correct. There was 4. There was actually 5, but it was a study of all 13. So there was 5 events. So if you take the average, it's 0 to 1 is what the average is. And I know you can play with numbers either way, but yeah, just looking at the historical, that's what it was. So it's a small amount. I can't guarantee that's what it's going to be in the future, but that's where we started.
So Wade, was that like one time a year, or was that like 2 times in 1 year, or?
Yep, we had one year, we had two years, we had
Mhm.
0 1 year. So yeah,
Gotcha.
if you average it out, that's what it came out to be.
Okay.
Supervisor Humphrey.
Yes, thank you all very much. As a company, I have public meetings in Tonto Basin once a month, and your company has showed up there and helped very much with constituents who had electrical problems with the deals, and you guys show up and you're there using my meetings as a public outreach. So I thank you very much, and I trust you a lot, and I think this is a great program. And the reason being is because they're in our rural areas, birds set it off, lightning sets it off, and elderly people, all of a sudden their electricity goes up and they didn't know it was coming. So if they're on auction, if they need AC, if they need something, they didn't know ahead of time. So I think this is a great thing. Like I say, my first fire meeting, we didn't have ready, set, go. We didn't even think about evacuation. So this RSO, ready, set, off, you know, how simple can that be? And it's gonna happen. So if you need to prepare for an RSO, get prepared, and we're not just, it's not just you're gonna be walking down the hall and your electricity's gonna go off. You're gonna pretty much know ahead of time. So you're not gonna walk down a dark hall in an emergency and you didn't know it was coming. I think it's great forward thinking, and I appreciate you very much for your forward thinking and sharing it with us and working with our emergency management so that people know that RSO's coming, so that we can work with evacuation centers and things and get the evacuation centers prepared for the off. It's going to happen, you know, and so I think it's great forward thinking. I think and instead of, like you say, have damage to a line because the wind is going to peak at such and such time, and then we've got a power outage that nobody knew was coming. Now you have to repair it, and nobody knew it was coming, except maybe you knew the odds were coming. So I think it's not a great thing, but I think it has to happen, and I think it's great that now we have the ability to let people know that it's going to happen, and we're willing to help you any way we can. So let us know what you need. It's going to happen. We're happy to help, and we'll work through it and go forward and turn the lights back on when the wind quits blowing.
I appreciate the comments, and thank you very much. I do also appreciate that you mentioned RSO in a public meeting, so you own that from now on.
Well,
So you're gonna have to pay him.
everybody had to get used to ready, set, go. They never knew what that is. What is RSG? It's ready, set, go. You know, we're not just gonna come and tell you, grab your dog, you gotta go. It's like, okay, pack your bag, get ready. So yeah, this is pretty much the same thing. It's forward thinking, and it can help, in my opinion, in the long run, keep people safer and keep lights on so we don't have these emergencies and create problems for ourselves.
But it is a partnership, and we want to make sure that we're with you guys all the way along and communicating to our customers. So
I thank you very, very much.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Yeah. Is that it? Mike, Mr. Chair, if I might. Carl, what are we going to do to be ready for this?
So I think most important part from the emergency management standpoint is making sure that notification takes place. So we've been working with APS on kind of coming up with some draft messaging, pre-canned messaging. They're working on and also assisting with advertising our notification system to get more people signed up for Ready Gila alerts. So they're going to bring us into the loop once they're forecasting one of these days, so we can start talking about what that unified release looks like and assisting them reaching out and making sure that we get a hold of people. Also, we've been tossing around ideas about some public awareness campaign items, such as talking about what devices people can buy to better outfit their homes. One of the big thoughts and concerns that actually came up in a conversation yesterday was, you know, if somebody has a landline phone, but it's supplied by power, whether it be a wireless phone or any other kind of phone that's not just a, you know, straight to cord landline, they don't have access to call 911 unless they have a cell phone. So one of the thoughts is, you know, promoting that people purchase battery backup surge protectors, so that they have that redundancy when it comes to communication. So we're kind of in the process of, I mean, already have established a protocol pretty much for the notification portion of this. Now we're looking at more proactive measures. What can we do to make people aware, to kind of soften the blow of losing power for an extended amount of time?
So one thing that happens in Young, I don't know if it happens in some of these other areas or not, maybe you know, a lot of times power goes out, cell phones don't work either.
So the majority of phones now, since the upgrade to the 5G network for 911 access, will actually utilize satellites rather than towers. Majority of times when you see cell phones not working, it's because, you know, tower access is affected as well. 911 access from the majority of cell phones now will go straight to satellite if there's not tower access. So that helps with part of that problem, but that's our top priority right now, is addressing that emergency contact, that access to having 911 for medical emergencies or whatever have you. So that is definitely a priority that we're looking at from every angle.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
And Carl, now that we know that this cat's out of the bag, and we have a budget year coming up, I'm not sure about how that works with Mr. Menlove, but maybe if we have a new challenge facing us, maybe we can put some thought into what we need to do to prepare, and maybe if it's going to increase the cost in emergency services, it's nice to know ahead of time before the budget comes out.
Absolutely. It's definitely something that we're looking at as well. One of the things that we've tried to kind of offset that, and APS is actually a big partner in that, is kind of leveraging two campaigns at the same time. The governor is moving very progressively towards, you know, extreme heat and preparedness for that. So I've had several meetings with them, been a part of that campaign, and of course, you know, not having access to power does present a risk with heat. So we started reaching out to some of our private sector partners for donations of any sort of equipment that we can give out to the public. APS is the first to step up, actually working on getting us some cooling towels, which I myself have used them. They are fantastic, especially for long durations of outdoors in the extreme heat. So we're going to continue to work on that to kind of help offset that on the budget. But I mean, yeah, that's definitely a conversation to be interested in talking about.
I'll get in there someday.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So Carl, in a lot of these remote areas, there isn't, like Red Cross isn't gonna show up. They're probably not gonna be there. So we talked about this once, about community involvement and having a community group that would more or less do that. What do you think? Are you gonna try and put something like that together in some of these areas, or promote it, or from a county standpoint? How are you gonna work that?
So as of right now, we've been really pushing for recruitment with the American Red Cross, since they have these kind of models and documents established for running emergency shelters. I would not be opposed to exploring the idea of, you know, either better bolstering one of our existing volunteer groups, or even reviving some of the old ones, or establishing a new one. I'm definitely on board with that. We learned from the Telegraph fire, where, you know, we did take some public flack from people saying, you know, why aren't you coordinating these stand-up volunteers? Well, unless they're a vetted volunteer, we can't send a stranger to somebody's home to assist them. So I am on board and willing with basically anything that we can do to bolster our volunteer community, because American Red Cross is short-staffed, not only in our county, but statewide, nationwide. So if we have these days that we need them and their valley resources are deployed elsewhere, we're stuck. So I really think that as of right now, the big push is to promote people to enlist in this existing organization.
Your turn.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank APS for their presentation. Janet, Frank, Wade, Katie, and I'm sorry, Joe and Brian. Very good. And thank you, Carl, for all of your collaboration and cooperation with the process. I will say, in a general sense, people are not prepared like Boy Scouts are supposed to be prepared. They're not prepared for food shortages, toilet paper shortages. They're not prepared for not being able to buy gasoline or whatever. There's a lot of things that people think it's just going to always be available, all that. And here we're talking about a power shortage, short term, hopefully. But it does put some people at risk that are pretty vulnerable to not having all of that going. So it is important that we don't just slough it off, that we are concerned, and what do? We educate our public. It's possible this could happen, but it's possible every day of the week that that could happen. So we need to be prepared for just in case it does.
One of the things I think I mentioned earlier is we are focused on trying to get people to sign up for alerts, but we also want people that have medical needs. We need to know that, and sometimes they might sign up for our alerts or sign up in their account, but their account in our system isn't flagged as they rely on medical equipment. And so that's another big push we're trying to do, because anybody flagged that way in our system is going to get personal phone calls saying, we think this is going to happen. What do you need to do to get, make sure you're getting enough backup oxygen tanks? What do you need to do to be prepared? We want to give them that notice. I just shared yesterday with Carl our list of medically monitored patient or customers on the 2 lines so that he could take a look at it. Unfortunately, I didn't like the numbers. I wish there were, I know there's more people out there than the very small number that are registered that way with us. So we're going to be focused on that. And I know Carl and I have talked about how do we kind of mesh our data and make sure that we know where all these people are who might be impacted. So we are thinking those are some other steps we're taking. One other thing I forgot to mention is when a couple of days out from a PSPS, we think there's an event coming, we're going to start pushing that customers go get ice, that we will reimburse them for ice. This is the process. Go buy ice. And then when there is an event, we will be setting up we can't be in every community, but we're going to try to set up ice distribution with dry ice, wet ice. Supervisor Klein, Young is one of the areas that we know is not very close to anywhere when you consider the roads you've got to travel. So Young is, we're planning to get ice down into Young, dry ice. So those are some of the other steps, and we want to continue to hear feedback so we can refine this and make sure that we're working together to support your residents and our customers.
Thank you, Janet. Supervisor Humphrey, any more?
I'm good, thank you.
Supervisor Klein?
I think I'm tapped out for now.
Are you good, Carl? No more to add. Manager Menlove? All good, we're all good, everybody's good. Then we are adjourned. Thank you.